Pick a number between 1 and 3,500.
97.
Funny. That's the episode of the pod. It's CSC episode 97. Anyway, hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Cheap Seat Critics podcast. With me today we have...
Hello, everybody. I'm one of your hosts, a geeky writer.
I'm Crimson Maroon.
And I'm Sprinks. And hey, you listening, if you know the spiel, but hey, if you want to see updates of anything we do or whatnot, we're over on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, as well as like LetterBox. We got YouTube, we got Rumble, we got PNG tubers. They're over there on visual side of things in case you prefer that over the audio. I know, audio podcast. But yeah. Anyway, today we are covering the film The Fundamentals of Caring, starring Paul Rudd and Selena Gomez. I think we should let's start with history before facts. Let's start with Ryder here. Ryder, what's your history with the film?
I thought my film history with this was 0 until I reached a particular scene which I realized I think I've seen something of it before. And outside of that one scene, my history is still pretty much near 0. So it's just more like 1% I have a history.
What scene was it? Are you holding that?
I can talk about it now because I guess we're right. I forget. We go into this with the expectation I already seen it. I've seen Trevor pissing off the railing.
Deepest hole.
Yeah, into the deepest pit.
Okay.
Interesting to have that be 1% of something you've seen, but okay.
Yeah, I have no idea how I've seen it before, but I know I've seen it before.
Life... All right, Crimson. Oh, sorry, I cut you off.
No worries. I was just going to say life be weird like that, but go on.
Yes, I will not mimic your 1%. I'll give it a 0.5% because I think I've seen the cover of this movie. And that's about it. Sprinks has talked about it before, I think once or twice before pitching it on the pod, but that would only be title only. So very limited. That's it.
All right. And for me, this is probably either my 5th or 6th time seeing this film. I quote a little bit of this. I think the thing I quote the most is Bite of the James. And yeah. I think that's it.
Not usually applicable to most things.
No, I usually quote it to you, actually, Crimson.
Yeah.
When I have a Slim Jim and I offer you it.
Yeah, it does happen.
So,
the miracle here would be Crimson accepting the offer.
True. That is a question I will have at the end of this pod if this movie has any influence on changing Crimson trying a Slim Jim now. Anywho. A couple facts I have here. The release date for this film, funny enough, it was at the Sundance Film Festival, January 29th, 2016. However, the worldwide release was June 24th of the same year. Out on Netflix. The runtime of the film is 1 hour and 37 minutes. For some reason, I couldn't find a budget or box office of any sort for the film. And I find it interesting that for a film, its rating is TVMA. Its genre is comedy/drama, and is directed by Rob Burnett, who did 2012's We Made This Movie, directed 4 episodes of a show called Ed in 2003 to 2004, and 1 episode of The Knights of Prosperity in 2007.
Well, I've heard of one of those.
Then a little fun facts. Again, I could only find a small amount, and I took these off the internet, so take them with a grain of salt on how true or false they may be. The film was filmed in 26 days.
Wow.
Timothée Chalamet auditioned for the lead role, but did not get the part. And I'm going to presume that was the role of Trevor and not Ben.
Probably.
Probably.
Yeah.
That would be a safe assumption.
More appropriate age.
And the last fact I have here is, according to a report that was published in Variety.com, the film was shot primarily in Atlanta and Cartersville, Georgia. Fundamentals of carrying shooting locations were set in these two areas.
Okay.
Whereas the movie, I think, takes place at the beginning in Seattle.
Yeah, that was going to be a question because I didn't know where they started. Okay, Seattle.
Yeah, there's one shot of them leaving on the highway, I think, with a Space Needle behind them.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
They do for a 26-day shoot. I think they did a very good job.
I can agree.
And it's nothing compared to Stand Against Evil with its 6-day script and 3-day shoots.
Yeah, but this one has actually quality to it. So.
Ooh.
Hot.
Ow.
Yeah, that one was a fighting remark.
A little sting.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I kid. I did enjoy Stand vs. Evil, or rather, I tried to.
2 out of 10 has some enjoyment in it. So today we'll be doing the 3-act structure, which I don't think we've touched in a while. It's been a lot of popcorn. But then again, funny enough, in those acts, we can popcorn wherever we'd like. However, as you know us by now, hopefully, unless this is your first episode, welcome. We'll probably jump around wherever in the acts, but also linearly, whatever. So we're starting with Act 1, which is going from the beginning of the film all the way to when Trevor and Ben leave for their road trip. And let us begin with Crimson for a point.
All right. Lettuce. Yeah, let's talk about lettuce here. So.
Oh, did I mispronounce that?
There went the joke. I threw the joke out there. No. Great start by me. All right. What point would I want to start with? Let's start with the hints that we're getting with Ben's character and his relation to his son. At this point in Act 1, we don't really know anything other than it happened 3 years ago. We don't know what it was. And that's about it. I found that intriguing. I like how long they held on to it. Because you could kind of infer, like a car hits him, or he has some sort of medical issue and he just collapsed on the ground. I did not think he's... let's get into Act 3. I'll say the for Act 3. But I think they did a good job with dangling the sun thing. They didn't bring it up too much or not enough. I think it was a good balance.
Do you think it played a good mystery to the audience of not knowing, especially for you two being first timers?
I think it was a better mystery than Cash. I don't know if I'd call it mystery. It's just more intrigue. It wasn't like a mystery to solve or anything. It's like, well, what's it going to be?
Yeah, I'm also inclined to agree. I don't think it was necessarily a mystery, but it's definitely like, it's definitely intrigue with regards to his character, because we know that that's part of what something happened, and we know it's put his character in this position to be the way that they are.
Okay.
What would be your answer to that question, Sphinx?
Well, funny enough, unfortunately, I can't fully recall my first thoughts watching this film back in probably 2016 when it came out. But I can agree that I do really like that it's not full front of revealing this about his character because then if it was fully revealed, everything going forward, we'd fully know his mentality, or more about his mentality and more about how he reacts to characters and situations he's in. But by not knowing, or at least not on a first time viewing, you can see something's about him and it's hinted at, but we don't fully know. And what the little we get is through the divorce with Janet and how he's not moving on. So is that important? Is that a big change because of his son? Caring for Trevor and taking the job for Trevor, not knowing he was a kid, but then accepting it, is that because of his son? So these things that aren't fully fledged out to begin with is, to me, like a lot of questioning and I guess, intrigue.
Yeah, I think it does potentially pose an issue, of which I'll ask you guys. And this is more based off of how you guys view these characters, specifically for me, Trevor. Do you think Trevor would have used that against Ben? He uses like, oh, your son 3 years ago, blah blah blah. I mean, more detailed, right? Like you killed your son or you ran him over. Something. I feel like Trevor would have done something, but they obviously held that back for the audience sake. Do you guys think Trevor would have done that at some point in here?
I think
Because they
we
don't hold
can't
back on each
fully.
other.
No,
They
I don't
they,
know how
they
much we
let
can
everything
admit
go.
to that though, because Trevor probably was told by his mom Elsa about the situation, but we don't fully hear like did she say that Ben's the cause of death of his son, or just that Ben lost a child?
She said she knows everything about it, and she said she told Trevor. So I think there's enough information to infer she told him what she knew.
I don't. I feel like if Trevor had the knowledge of all that, yes, he would use it. In especially a real tight corner situation of lashing out that he does to Ben, but I think he just goes more on the father aspect than the loss of a child.
What do you think, Ryder? This is a character moment here.
Yeah, I'm running through his character because obviously it's hard to talk about this without talking about their Act 3 like fight, more or less.
The parking lot.
Yeah. Um, I don't know if it's within Trevor's character to use that because he kind of holds off of it the entire during the entire course of the film up until that point. The closest we get to it is when Ben snaps at him for over the father discussion that they have. I don't. Yeah, I don't see that. I know Trevor isn't quote unquote asshole, but he's not like that much of an asshole. Especially since at this point he's also grown to care for Ben to a degree as well. I do have some issues with the uh, Ben being at fault, not necessarily because it's pertains to like the flaw in his character, but more so that it pertains to like I guess how that plays a role in the story.
And would that talk be reserved for later?
Yeah, that's got to be
third
referred
act
for later, unfortunately.
Right.
Which is
But
like the story of the son. We're dropping little hints here for later.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, with regards to Trevor being would Trevor use it as ammunition? I don't think so. I don't. Trevor is very, very blunt, and he has a very morbid sense of humor. But most of that morbid sense of humor pertains to himself specifically. So he doesn't really like use that sense of humor. Like he doesn't use that humor to hurt other people. He uses it to make fun of himself and other people. If that makes sense, he uses himself as the laughing stock typically.
I don't know. He throws a lot of negative jokes towards Ben, calling him stupid all the time, and it's funny in context to the scenes, but he's still insulting him. And
Yeah, well, but seeing those are light insults though. When it comes to more serious insults, those pertain to himself specifically. So he doesn't cross
except
he
the
doesn't cross a
bedroom bit.
specific line to be rude. I mean, like, sorry, he's rude, but he doesn't cross a specific line to come across as a dislikable character.
I think it also falls onto Trevor's current emotional state of where he is, because what we're hinting at of like in Act 3, it's very much distressed problem.
Yeah, he's
Everything
definitely
else
pushed
earlier
to
on
that
is
point as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything else is just kind of more just banter. You're just one of the many caregivers I've had before.
Yeah, which I agree with you. He was pushed the more extreme, which is when I think he would have used this knowledge on him, which kind of gets for me. I do think he would use this at some point in this movie. I wouldn't think it would be a passing thing. It would definitely be during an emotional moment, but I do think he would use it.
And well, the only opportunity would have been at the parking lot.
Or the bedroom. I mean, that's when he first brings up the whole son thing, which then Ben gets mad about once he finds out Trevor knew at that moment. I think both of those times he could have used it.
No,
The first time,
Trevor wasn't pushed enough emotionally for that first bedroom scene. That was Ben being emotional. The only opportunity in this movie would have been at the parking lot.
I'm also standing with the bedroom scene, or just at all with Trevor, how much of the knowledge he fully has about the instance of Ben's kid. Just because Elsa says she knows everything, could
well, there's nothing to
limit
assume she didn't tell him what she knew.
Well, she could. I mean,
We
still,
know
if
she
she
cares
knew
about
everything,
him.
like you lost a kid, that's knowing a lot about Ben, not knowing how the child died, though.
She said she knew everything, so I'm going to assume she knows everything. But everything's a big term, just throw that around if you don't mean it. Unless you're being facetious about it, which is what she was not doing.
She doesn't strike me as a facetious kind of person.
Yeah. She was pretty serious there.
I'm kind of in agreement with Crimson. Trevor probably knows as much as his mom knows. And they are vague, and I think it's good that they're vague about how much that Elsa really knows. But as far as that's concerned, it is probably safe to assume that she does know literally everything because that's what's in the script. And there's only so much you can glean, I guess, from the subtext of everybody's acting, because I think there's a lot to be gleaned from how everyone acts out their characters as well.
Mm-hmm. All right.
I don't know how much that would change in Trevor's character then.
Having the knowledge and not using it? Or...
No, because to me, Trevor just knowing that Ben's kid died is Trevor going with, you're trying to make me a son figure to you, which just happens in the comments a couple times in like you're not my father situations, rather than you killed your child, so why am I trusting you to take care of me on this road trip? Like I never get that feeling from Trevor of like always knowing that you killed a child.
Oh, I think the reason that Trevor likes Ben is because Ben treats him as normally as possible. Like Ben's not afraid to insult him back, even if it's not to like a really, really sharp degree.
Yeah, we get 3 straight shooters in this. With Dot, Ben, and Trevor, they are all straight shooters.
So I don't know, even if even if Trevor knew that, you kind of are supposed to at that point in the film buy that they have had an established relationship now, an established working relationship now, and they do like each other. Otherwise, it would be very unpleasant for the both of them.
Oh, of course, time has definitely passed.
Which, no, I'll save it. It's someone else's turn. I don't need to piggyback off my own comment.
Okay, I'll go with something minor here of a touching point at the beginning. That it states a Netflix presents a Netflix original film. Crimson, did this leave a sour start in your mouth for the start of the film? Being how you feel about Netflix originals?
It did set an expectation. I'll say that much. Wasn't necessarily a negative expectation, but there was an expectation present. And I guess you'll find out if it was met or not.
Ryder, point for you.
Sure. I actually quite liked how quickly this film just gives us the information. We get Aloha at the very beginning, which is ask, listen, observe, help, ask again. And we immediately get the narration of the teacher who's teaching the course and stuff like that. But it pertains very much to the overall story that's happening, so we don't really waste much of... I don't feel like there's any waste here in the opening between seeing Ben go through his depressive stages, and we see him, getting divorce papers slid under his door, and then we also have the narration, which is explicitly drawing a line between the difference between caring and loving. like like you can't take care of another person unless you take care of yourself first. That's sort of the whole concept is very very intrinsic to the whole film. Um, so the film just drops you right in, and I quite like that. That's what it spends its I want to say the first 3-4 minutes just focusing on all of that before we actually meet the clients, as it were, Ben and I'm sorry, Elsa and Trevor.
Yeah, it was interesting because he passed, and the first thing I wrote in my notes was how did he pass, because he kind of failed one of the requirements as they put out, like put it with a smile on your face, be happy, whatnot. And we never actually see him be happy or put on a smile during the training stuff.
No, yeah, well, it's because we kind of just skip the training stuff. We just see him; he's there taking notes, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, but going past that, going forward, he doesn't really have a smile for a while either.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm
So
not.
to
I'm
me, it's
not.
just like, how did he get through that without anyone actually telling him he needs to better that?
Yeah, I don't know. I legitimately have no idea how he made it through the training. The best faith assumption is that you could. The best faith assumption I have from what the film is, little of the film has given to me, is just that he faked it until he made it. Um,
Would have been nice if they showed that in there, where instead he has the whole depressed face while listening to the presentation. We see him then transition to a smile right when she says that's a requirement. So we know he's trying.
and it would be one thing to intercut with him training, with also just him being depressed.
Yeah, at his house, dodging the papers and stuff.
Yeah, or sitting out on the park bench, just kind of letting people walk by.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but again, I'll tie it back to what I actually do like about it. I do like that the narration builds up the foundational dichotomy of the story.
Let's do that. Yeah.
Shake it
And
off.
yeah, I got the on there. Right? And we see him try to utilize Aloha in the beginning by asking and listening. He observed. He didn't really help. You could see he was doing the steps though when Trevor came up.
Yeah. Um, I do like that it's obvious where Trevor gets a sense of humor. And this is one of the things I really, really like about in turn. Funny enough, I really love the dialogue of this film overall. I'm just going to get that right away right now. Dialogue in this film is really, really good. And I think the actors add more layers to the dialogue that's already there, which is great. Uh, so you get a sense immediately when, as well, when Ben sits down to meet Trevor and Elsa for the first time, you get where Trevor gets his sense of humor. He gets some of it from his mom because she laughs at one of his jokes.
Yeah, she laughs at a lot of his jokes and even counters with them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When Trevor wants to, plow the news reporter that she. Oh no, not the cheerleaders that she wants it televised.
Seahawks, which would I guess place it in Seattle as well.
All right. Well, let's see here. I'll go with something. I guess it does go with the pace of the film, but I thought it was a little quick that Elsa, when Ben knocked on their house.
Oh yeah, she just teleported.
Well, she didn't teleport. She was very quick to assume that the man knocking on her door was Ben, the caregiver, and not like a hello, who are you, or like she just opened the door and extended her hand.
Oh well, I mean, it would be a safe assumption. They had to schedule the meeting. I don't have an issue. My issue with that is that she was just there the second he knocked on the door.
Yeah. Do you think she was just waiting by the door? Or
It would be weird. It would be weird. I would have issues if that's what was actually going on. I have an issue with the scene overall, or I have an issue with that in particular because she wouldn't be there because she's always busy in the mornings.
But she's a very time management person.
Yeah. So unless she got up specifically the second that she saw Ben's
Could have
car
heard the
roll
car
up.
pull up.
Yeah.
Yeah, she could have heard it pull up.
Yeah. And so like I said, it's a minor thing. I don't have it's not really an objective issue. It's just a personal one. I would have just let it hang just an extra second or two. That way it wasn't immediate.
But on your points, Sprinks, she was expecting him, so I don't see why she wouldn't expect him at that time. It's not going to be some random pizza delivery guy. Let's see. Can I jump to a point?
Absolutely.
All right. The point I cut myself off was the time jump, because we talked about it a little bit, and I wanted to dive deeper. I personally, I'm not going to say it's an objective problem, but I did not enjoy the time skips we were getting. We had 2 to 3 weeks in this montage of him going to the park and stuff, and I felt like we were missing so much of their development together to build this this relationship with them. Because we were told Trevor's going to be this trouble child. He scares off all the caregivers he's given, and we get the first interaction, and then we kind of skipped it all. It's not that difficult. We get the toilet stuff and him freaking out at the park, but we don't really see Ben grow through that too much, except the bathroom. I don't know. I felt like it detracted from their relationship, which I think is a good relationship. It just feels like they skipped a step by doing that.
Let's see.
Do you think they skipped a character growth that they do later on the road trip that would have aided if it was more at the beginning? You don't think it's strong enough to start?
Like I said, I don't view it as objectively flawed. I don't know what it would be, but the early stages are the most important when building up a relationship, especially with a caregiver. And they kind of just speed run it, and I don't think they needed to speed run that.
Yeah, I
I don't know
don't.
if you guys agree or not to that.
I do agree. It's not my issue with the time jump. It's just they set expectations of how much Trevor needed to be on this set schedule, or he was going to have a panic attack. Those are the words out of his mother's mouth, pretty much.
Yeah.
So there's set expectations, and we don't see anything line up with them. And I'm inclined to believe Elsa, what she said, because Trevor never pushes back on whatever Elsa says with regards to his needs and how she's there. It has been the one to care for him when there is no other caregiver around. So that for me is where a lot of the pervasive issues are. So I don't know if it's necessarily the time skip issue that I have. It's just that I was given explicit character traits and character needs, and I don't see any of those play out outside of the waffles and sausages and going out on Thursdays.
Yeah, we get to see his panic attack later in the film when the meds were missing, in air quotes.
So that you get to see a build up to a panic attack. You don't really see a panic attack.
I don't know. He was shaking and freaking out, thinking he was going to die.
Like I said, the build up is there, but it's not. It's not a panic attack. It's almost a panic attack.
I'm with Ryder on that. It was not a panic attack.
So it's one of those things where my issues with that is I was given expectations for what we were going to see him dealing with in the montage, and everything goes smoothly, which is fine. But we also have set expectations of like, why would
there were no hurdles?
Yeah, why would he agree to go on the trip at all, even if he was inspired by the idea? If this is something he has to deal with, which is regular panic attacks, and it's one of those. I do have issues with it because I think it's a plot contrivance that bleeds into character work. If that makes sense. So I don't have an issue with the time skip necessarily, though I wish we did see all of it. I just didn't see them overcoming those problems that were explicit.
Nice to see Ben screw up. Like he had 2 different pills. He had like the necessity pills and then the other pills. Once he could afford to skip out on the supplements and stuff. Mm-hmm. It would have been nice if he actually forgot the supplements one day and then Trevor starts freaking out about it. but we don't get any early screw ups. We skip any potential screw ups there were.
Yeah, and I do think it would have been nice to get a screw up here because that would also play into the how they play with each other's expectations going on. I think it would have made a lot of those dramatic moments to comedic moments will land a lot harder. Um,
You've convinced me. It's now an objective issue for me.
you're welcome. I'm happy to help.
There should have been a hurdle in there.
Yeah,
But it was all smooth.
Obviously, the intended hurdle is
It's Trevor
Trevor's
himself.
attitude, right? But we needed an act. We needed a. It could have been minor. It didn't even need to be major. He could have just had. We could have montaged through it
Waffles
too.
was an hour late.
Yeah, waffles are like an hour late or something like that, where it could be a part of the montage too, where we kind of get the faded of like version of them yelling at each other while while he's making waffles quickly or something like that. So there is definitely a workaround for this issue, but it is an objective issue for me because, and mind you, I do have some Ryan Johnson shitting on notes in my notes here. That's because they
figured you would.
Yeah, of
There's
course.
a couple subversions in
There's
here.
there's plenty of subversions that are really well supported in here. So proof that I actually like subverting expectations is just Ryan Johnson sucks. But yeah, no, I get where you're coming from, Christian, for sure. So I have an objective issue with it as well. I just don't necessarily pertain it to the time.
Sprinks, we talked a lot about this stuff. Thoughts on it?
Yeah, I don't have an objective issue with it at all. I think Ben is completely competent to follow a schedule of being stuck in a house 6 days a week with one park visit on Thursday to have everything down to a T. And he's basically always there for Trevor, unless, there's nothing shown or anything that Ben's doing while taking care of Trevor that'll distract him, other than he's just watching TV with Trevor as well. So I think there's no need for a screw up or a time screw up, or I feel like there could be a question for Elsa of like, what if something runs out, or who do I contact, or emergency number, something like that. But I don't think that's also needed because I feel like he would already have that information from how Elsa has relayed all the information to Ben of like everything is set exactly how it needs to be set, and he'd already have that. So the time jump for me is, I guess, to me it's fine and proper with just showing that Ben takes care of Trevor and Trevor gets into like shenanigans and hijinks of pranks that Ben is getting accustomed to, and he just knows that's just Trevor. The only one that does, he's also very attentive because even though Trevor loves playing the boy who cried wolf, Ben still gets caught in it.
And I wouldn't call a screw up from Ben incompetence, by the way. It's, with the waffle example, it doesn't even have to be an hour. It could be 5 minutes late. And then Trevor starts panicking because he's so schedule oriented. And 5 minutes off is a pretty normal human error within, I think. 5 minutes late of making waffles. I think that's totally acceptable, especially first, second day. You're trying to figure out everything. It can be something minor. It doesn't have to be a big thing like he lost a bottle of pills in the bathroom or something.
Yeah, and I'll add a little more onto this of why it's an objective issue, because of how they play with Ben being at fault for his son's death later on. I think there would be more stress for him not to screw up.
Well, that would support Spranks' point more. That he'd be more diligent and not.
Well, yeah, he would still be diligent. He would do his job. But I'm saying that it adds more as well in the objective sense is how hard he has to try to make sure everything stays in line.
I think we'd see more of that if there wasn't a 3-year gap.
He clearly thinks about it all the time. At least when it's Trevor.
Yeah, the 3-year gap unfortunately isn't relevant because it's always on his mind, as we're shown in the film.
Yeah, his life's been put on pause because of that moment. He can't move on with Janet, darn it, close. His life has been put on hold because of that. He thinks about it every day.
Okay. Okay, yeah, okay. So he thinks about sun every day.
And so much so that he couldn't even explain to Janet why he can't move on. Why are you holding on? And I'm just not ready. It's constant mental battle with himself.
I'm skimming my notes really quickly because I know I wrote about we were given a set of character traits to play with, but we never really see them play out all that much. I just don't know how far I wrote into this.
Meaning throughout the whole film, character traits, or just this
No,
beginning?
it pertains to the beginning because that's what set some expectations. But I brought it came up again later because I think everything again. One of the issues I have with the road trip and going in deeper into the film is that everything is still going a little too smoothly. Though not that it's a bad thing that it's going smoothly, mind you. I'm just pointing it out.
Crimson, with what you
Yeah,
brought up earlier as an example of showing a panic attack in Trevor because he didn't get his waffles or pills within 5 minutes to show an error on Ben's part, is there anything that shows a time issue where it causes such a thing?
Oh, like Ben is off the schedule.
Yeah. I feel like Ben goes off the schedule on the road trip. It's just like when they get to a stopping point.
Well, no, they. What schedule on the road trip are you pertaining to that he goes off of?
I mean, like stopping at a hotel.
Okay, him and Elsa mapped out the entire planned route, the pit stops, the sleeping arrangements. That was all planned. The stuff that was not planned was picking up Peaches and Dot, and they didn't go on their Nebraska direction yet. So the plan actually hasn't really changed. They just got some hitchhikers along the way.
And the plan would have deviated if they were still going together from the World's End or the World's End, the World's Tooth Pit.
Wrong movie. Okay, funny comparison though. So I guess to answer your question, nothing really comes to mind of him being off schedule.
Okay. Because I can go with then that a possible objective flaw is that everything goes too smoothly. And that's not realistic.
Yeah, the only kind of hurdle we get with planning is Rufus being on the second floor. Which is something I guess he could have found out when researching, but either of them, Trevor or Ben, that's getting a little further ahead. But yeah, scheduling, I don't think they had any issues with schedules.
Kind of move, I guess, off of this subject. One of the things I do like is I praise the acting. I like the inner monologue in Paul Rudd's acting quite a bit. The things that he never really has to say explicitly, but obviously when asked why he wants to be a caregiver, you can definitely get a sense of like pain from the character before he answers.
Yeah, there's more than just to help people.
Yeah,
his response was,
which I like. I think that adds a lot more to the script, as it were.
Yeah, I think everybody's acting in this was pretty solid. I don't think there were any bad eggs.
I'm in agreement.
Yeah, I'm not a huge Selena Gomez fan, but you know what? She did a good job in this.
Not a Wizards of Waverly Place fan.
I mean, I
No,
don't
you
want
didn't watch Disney Channel. So.
No,
to demerit him, but Cash didn't exactly have a huge role of acting.
No, but because it was so limited, he didn't really screw it up.
I'm not gonna merit that it's bad, but I wouldn't go out of my way saying it's exceptionally
Not Oscar worthy.
Wonderful. Yeah.
He does a serviceable job.
Yes, he plays a somewhat deadbeat dad as good as he can there.
In my notes, I found at 2 minutes and 20 seconds roughly, you can see Paul Rudd, looking into a mirror. I think when he's shaving his face, that reflects 3 reflections of himself. While also being, a Netflix project. So what I'm getting at this is I need my second nickel.
Yeah. Well, when did Living Stuff come out? Before or
Good
afterwards?
question. I
So,
think it
I
was
don't
after.
remember. Okay. Check out our coverage of that if you want.
Plug it.
There you go.
Yeah,
Plugged.
it was
Boom.
3 years after.
Oh yes, more Janet stuff for me. So now, having seen the whole movie, I can fully understand Janet as a character. Because in the beginning here, she's said he's had like 2.5 years to think about it, and I couldn't read into what that meant. It being the divorce or the kid, both. Um, which do you guys think she was aiming for that statement? Because it was ambiguous for the audience at that point, but
My
by the
answer
end we
to
have
that
enough
question was
info.
yes.
It's both.
Yeah, it's absolutely both. It's hard not to. Ben would be blaming himself, and it's hard not to blame Ben for what happened.
Yeah.
And so that for me informs why she would want to divorce him, and or at least part of the reason why she would want to divorce him, and why he doesn't want to let her go because she's all she has left of his son. So there's there's a lot of recontextualization that happens for the rest of the film that I think is good.
Yeah, because they said it happened 3 years, and she said 2.5. So I guess they tried to work it out for half a year before wanted a divorce out of him. But I cut you off, Spring. So you're about to say something.
No, I do think it's also both, because losing his son and the divorce would be like losing his wife, so that's just more family loss.
Mm-hmm. But now he's got a new family with Trevor.
Well, later.
Yeah.
But if you mean just this one scene, also really like this one scene in Crimson. I know you're not gonna like it, but I like the coloring and color usage of it, and how desaturated everything is, and everyone's in like grays and kind of bluish hues.
Sounds like
and it's
Seattle
like
weather.
overcast. Yeah. But I really like the parallel to this versus when he meets her again later in the film.
I'm fine when this stuff's obvious. By the way, I agree that was
Are you
obviously
sure?
intentional.
Are you sure? I thought that
Same with his bedroom when he was hiding from the letter. It was all gray and drab in there.
it's okay to not be
The,
okay,
the,
Crimson.
No, Crimson only likes
no,
it when
I
it's
don't like
like
being painted
in his
black and white.
face.
And no, I've pointed out examples to you guys that aren't black and white. End of the point.
All right.
I I quite like Elsa's reaction. I like Elsa a lot as a character, but you don't know fully what to make of her. I think until the trip planning scene, or like the where they talk about the trip, and because you get a good sense of like, oh, she's actually a good mom. Like she's mad at Ben, but she's still not, she's still willing to hear him out. And then also, obviously, I enjoy the subversion that she's not angry at Ben for the yelling match he and Trevor had, but rather the idea of the trip. Because that's definitely with playing with the audience's expectations a little bit.
And Ben's expectations.
And Ben's expectations too, yeah.
Yeah, I like Elsa as a character as well. I think the only thing I had with her was how she doesn't really let Trevor go anywhere. Just the park. So the furthest she's ever been is an hour out from the house. And
Which is a
she
lot.
brought up like the sleep app machine, as an excuse, and pills and everything. Like don't really need the sleep app machine if you're just going to go a couple hours away. That would be days. Obviously, she's just trying to convince Ben it's a bad idea, but you definitely could take him out more.
And the thing is, she actually can't because she's working. She's a
Well, now, yeah, but
well, no,
wasn't an
she's been a
issue
single
earlier.
mom working for a while. Not the new job at the bank, yes, but I mean she's presumably been doing other various jobs all the time because she's the only one bringing in money for the house. So that's why Trevor has had a bunch of other caregivers.
Yeah,
So
there was a line that she moved to the States in 9 months, but prior to that, she was transferred. So I don't know if it's the same bank company in the UK she was attending or with.
I mean, the point still stands though. I find it reasonable that she hasn't been the one to take Trevor out and about.
I mean, even if it wasn't her, scheduling activities for him as well with caregivers. If we're going to go that route. She's smart. She would know it would be healthy for her kid to be out there, which is why she has the scheduled parks every Thursday. I
Mm-hmm.
just think she would give him
More
more
effort.
options. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess best inference to make based off of that would be, with regards to the film, would be how much the other caregivers were put off by Trevor's, a more abrasive personality.
That is very true. How long does Elsa need a caregiver to stay with Trevor before trusting to do such a thing?
I mean, right out the gate on the schedule was park on Thursdays. That's already trusting them within a week of hiring to take them
No, no, no.
outside
I
the
mean
house.
of their own other unscheduled activities with the caregiver.
Well, quite simply, it could just be Trip Thursday. It doesn't have to be the same park every week. One day could be the zoo, one could be the museum. Uh, but it's just the same park every week. You don't have to fill up his schedule with every day doing something.
Well, no, but that's also the ease of mind onto Elsa, knowing that if she needs Trevor or something occurred, she'd know exactly where to go. So that's on the
Well, if she
caregiver to.
plans the schedule, this week you're going to the zoo, she would know they're at the zoo.
I suppose so. I just don't know. I feel like the zoo would have more dangers around Trevor, to her knowledge, than a park.
That's just an example. Like I said, museum,
Yeah,
anything. Could be a different park. I don't know. A different scenery. Let him explore Seattle a little bit.
do you think Elsa's too busy to do such a thing?
Um,
That she just sees this as a way of keeping Trevor safe to the routine that they already had, and he's not fighting back to her mom about it?
I mean, there's definitely an element of safety for her, but I think she would also want him to explore more. Which ultimately is why she accepts this trip, because she knows Ben is right, that it's good for him. Even when Trevor said or wanted to back out of it, she still had him go.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe that's what sets Ben apart from the others. Like Ben is one of the caregivers actually willing to do all this, where other caregivers maybe were not. Um,
Kind of
I don't think.
inferring a lot, though.
that yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
starting
don't
that's
think
starting to
we
cross over
know.
into that is starting to cross over to the unreasonable part of inference. But it could work. I'm kind of in a. You've moved me a bit, Crimson. Yeah, I can definitely see it being an issue. Um, I don't know if it's any more than just a nick though. It's just a tiny issue with regards to her character.
Yeah, that's all I see it as. It's a nick. Because other than that, I thought her character was pretty solid. It sounded like Sprinks, you were about to say something there.
Well, I think Ben is the most time and I guess friendship built with Trevor out of any caregiver. But then again, that's also an assumption of not knowing.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
just what's
she
portrayed.
kind of does that to a degree, and there's a bit more for that. no other caregivers been so bonded with him before. So I think there's enough for that.
All right. Writer point.
Elsa was mine, actually.
Oh,
Different point.
Sure. I love the. This is just before they leave on the road trip. I actually quite like the last exchange that Elsa and Trevor have, which is, died trying to see the world through his pit seems like a really bad obituary. And then Elsa goes, or is it? Um, I quite like the build up to that because they're both kind of looking for an excuse to call it off because they're both really, really nervous because you get the sense that they have a healthy parents offspring relationship and I don't know, they again, the script does a lot of good work with them. I like the way that they play off each other even when they're trying to look for excuses to call off the trip at the last minute. Good stuff.
That was good. And that dips into her sense of humor with him as well.
Makes them feel more like a family because they know each other's jokes at like the back of their hand and their sense of humor.
Brinks, do you have any?
looking. I just like how Trevor's crude humor is also a use of like a mind game / testing with Ben. See how far can he go, what reactions he can get out of Ben, how good of a caregiver he is.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's his way of just like a prolonged interview. Because in the interview, Trevor gave him 2 questions and said he's good.
Yeah, well, I think what made him accept Ben was the fact that Ben was ready to straight talk him back. He's like, which is one thing I guess I appreciated right off the bat.
Yeah.
More of a call. Sorry, you go.
All right. I do like a lot of the callback or references to throughout this film. We obviously get the ping, which I didn't think was going to be like a massive payoff at the end of this film, but they set that up here, and I think it's really good for Ben to, first off, ask him what he'd want if he could walk and be normal and stuff, but then push him to achieve that within his own capabilities. It's very, very good of him. And what's the other setup? The father's letters. That one's a bit more easy, obvious, but appreciated nonetheless.
The father what?
Father letters.
Oh yeah. I got one. I got one on for Ben. Commenting the acting. I actually really when Elsa confronts him over his father stuff, and when we find out that Elsa did all her research and stuff like that. I checked marked Ben's acting for that scene because I thought Ben's acting was a little bit off, but it's kind of paid off immediately afterwards as to why he's acting a little bit off because he's already angry at Trevor. So I kind of that's one of the scenes I went back for and kind of took off my check mark pretty much because I'm like, okay, yeah, he was doing a good job because he was clearly thinking about what he was going to say to Trevor throughout the scene and how angry he was at Trevor specifically.
Yeah, about pushing the father letters.
No, when Elsa confronts him about over his dead son.
Realizing that Trevor knew the whole time.
Yeah, because this is after he found out, was insulted over the father letter stuff. Yeah, like what would you know about being a father? That sort of thing.
Yeah, which is a pretty scummy comment.
Yeah, pretty scummy.
Going back to the earlier comments. What was the point? I was going to bring a point. It's yes. This is a hypothetical because there's no real answer. I just want to know what you guys think. After the Janet talk, where he's like, "Give me time," we get is a faraway pan out shot of them. They're still there. What do you guys think they talked about after just the denial? It wasn't them getting up to leave. They were still sitting there. Like, okay, so what are they going to talk about now? They blatantly ignored the hard stuff. So, can I talk about the weather or something?
After Janet leaves and says we're going to plan us to a T.
Did I say Janet? I said Elsa, didn't I?
Oh.
No, I said Janet, not Elsa. Yeah, you're getting my names mixed up, right? Or I see what you're doing here. No, Janet, the ex, when they had their talk about the divorce papers.
And you're asking me what
Ben
they did
said
for
he
the rest of
wasn't.
the conversation?
Yeah, because he said no, and then they just stayed sitting there. One of them didn't get up to leave, so I'm like, oh, they carried on the lunch or whatever.
They were probably trying to maintain a cordial friendship, which wouldn't be too out of the blue.
Really confused me with all that wording.
Yeah.
I think it was just forcing Janet's hand to then say, okay, I'm going to get a court summons.
And good on her for that.
For committing, yeah.
Yeah. Even then, that was 2 weeks after when the guy went to Ben's place with the court order. He still gave him time after that.
Sorry, what Ryder brought up earlier about the bedroom scene of Ben yelling at Trevor about knowing and what he did. I got that confused with the earlier scene of them sitting by the letters and Ben pushing the father thing.
That leads into that. So, yeah, like the father conversation comes out because of the letters, and then once Elsa confronts him about his son, Ben realized that Trevor knew all along. So that's when he got really angry at Trevor because he knew Trevor. At that point, Trevor was being an asshole to be an asshole, because he knew already that he was fucking with Ben in that way.
Oh.
What?
After all 5+ times I've seen the movie, never pieced that together.
Oh, yeah, I thought that was obvious. Yeah, no, that's why Ben is really angry with Trevor because Trevor knew all along, and the father letters that come out is why they're having the father conversation to begin with, and that's why Trevor makes the comment, "What do you know about being a father?" Because Trevor, that's recontextualized in that Trevor knows that Ben has lost a son.
Yeah, never got that.
How did you interpret it?
I saw it as being pushed. That is Trevor not knowing that Ben has a son. Not that he did know and is like lying to him, but he legitimately does not know and is saying, what, how do you know about, a father's supposed to be there for his kid and everything, which is to the not knowing of like, that's what Trevor feels about his dad not being there for him. And Ben just being quiet about it, like listening before going to get juice because he wants to say something about it. And then later going into the scene after knowing Ben had a kid and knowing all that knowledge, but because it cuts to the guy knocking on Ben's door with the court summons and then Ben driving off again, it's a whole new day afterwards, which to me, being that it was kind of a montage of time skip, isn't directly the following day, which I'm assuming is what you two saw, because then it would make sense of Elsa saying, hey, Trevor already knows, because it would be weird that morning is the chosen morning for her to tell him about it.
The morning
which
after?
Would keep my point in view, but rather than beforehand. That is, if it is the following day.
I think the montage is ended by that point, but I get what...
I did write down the convenience of her bringing that up after we had the whole interaction with Trevor. We don't know how much time has passed since the Trevor comment and her talking to him about it.
Yeah,
but it's definitely why Ben was mad at him, because Trevor knew about it when he made that comment.
Yeah, I'm also in agreement. It's convenient that they had that conversation now. As much as I love the dialogue for the scene and everybody's acting, it is convenient that they have the conversation. Just happened to be shortly after Trevor's comments about uh, Ben being a father.
I'm just still a little blown away. I never pieced it.
The living room. I like the comment where he's like, he should get out of the living room. I feel like it was a missed opportunity to say get out of the living room and live. But
No, I don't think you need to do that. I think it's well, I mean, I
like, that
guess
would be nice. It doesn't have to be that.
yeah. I don't know. I felt that would have been too on the nose. I quite like the fact that they aren't on the nose about everything. Everything like the I guess the point of everything doesn't need to be stated because everything else about it is so strong. If you know what I'm saying.
I mean, yeah, there's enough to piece together what he's saying by saying that.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be spelled out, but I think it would have been nice.
And then I think we get Ben's first genuine smile, right? After his mom agrees to plan the trip to a T.
Yeah, full on excitement for it. And you could tell he already was thinking about how it would work too, based off how quick he was saying, "We got to plan out the routes, do all this, blah blah blah," listing out stuff.
Yeah, like you gotta know every hospital within reach, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it wasn't a passing thought. It's something he actually thought about.
Yeah, and obviously, I quite like Trevor in the scene as well. How nervous he is about it. And I think it might just be that. Actually, here's a funny thing to bring up. Just because I think it just might be because Trevor has a British accent. There are certain angles and stuff like that where I thought it might have been Tom Holland because they have a very similar accent, and I guess they have a very similar jawline. But obviously, it's not.
No.
I'll get you though. I would be able to believe they are related.
Yeah, I know Tom Holland has a brother. I thought they might have a brother because they got, like I said, they have a very similar jawline and they have the same accent. So
Certainly close.
had to get over that for spent like 15 minutes of the film trying to get over that.
No, I believe Craig Roberts and Tom Holland are not related whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
How about the massive disappointment of no Katy Perry? I mean, Ben lied to us straight. Right? He reached out to the Make-A-Wish, and she said she's for it. She just wouldn't sing fireworks, but she never showed up.
I think it's just matching humor to Trevor.
Yeah. If my sarcasm didn't come through in the mic, that's absolutely enough. As for Act 1, I think I'm good.
I have only one thing I think for left for Act 1. It's actually something I didn't like. I didn't like the extended Slim Jim joke. And the reason being is I think it went on too long, and that to me came off as that was Paul Rudd doing going off script for it's called improv. He was the joke felt improved, and for me it clashed with the tone of everything else that had come before in terms of how the sense of humor was working and stuff like that.
Right. That was Act 2, I think. Though.
Was it?
That's once they're on the road.
Oh.
Yeah, just write it, but it's fine.
Because of how heavily referenced the Slim Jim is throughout the entire film, I think it's more than improv. Unless they really went into it and just reworked a lot of the script to fit that in there as a running.
No. I think there's a lot going forward for sure. So I'm fine with the joke, but there's a point to me where it starts becoming improv because I think it just went on a little too long. I guess I do have one point of the previous act before we fully commit to this conversation. I quite like the shot of Trevor holding on to the blanket a little more tightly because he's nervous. Mm-hmm. Good stuff. Thumbs up.
Yeah,
There we go.
he does a
Then I'm
good
done for
job.
the act.
Mhm. Now, Spring
Let's
says
see.
5 things he wants to lay out real quick.
No. I'll go with one at around 26:30 timestamp of the film. There's a street sign that is Bent Grass Drive by Putting Green Lane. Those roads don't exist in Seattle. I looked them up.
Where do they exist?
Nowhere.
Oh,
There's a
this
place that's
made up street.
close to Bent Grass. It's Bent Grass something. It wasn't Drive in Florida.
Oh, okay. Purely made for the movie then.
Yes.
A little
They weren't
interesting.
even didn't even pop up in, I guess, connection to Atlanta, Georgia, or Clarksville, where it was filmed. At least that I could find.
Wonder why they did that, because they're going to real places. I don't know why they would need to make that up.
Could be the safety of the neighborhood.
Perhaps.
I mean, the Astoria House for Goonies. That was a big problem.
Yes, and it was mostly due to people being terrible, and leaving garbage everywhere, and doing a whole bunch of stuff.
All right. Well, if that's all the points, then, because I think I have. Well, I'll go with one more. When Paul, not Paul, yeah, Paul, but when Ben points to Trevor having the map and says, "What's that red star?" and he says, "That's the world's deepest pit." I think it's totally acceptable being there's 2 stars on the map that he was not talking about the one that had the lettering to name off what it was.
Well, yeah, and it was kind of a passing thing. He didn't really have time to read it. His eyes kind of just gravitated towards it. And, what's that? What's that for?
Yeah, I just think it's way better that there's a second red star scene. Because if it wasn't, then I think it's a little dumb.
Do you think there's only 2?
No, there's multiple stars. There's just 2 red ones. Because he asked, "What's that red star?" And I think it's great that it's shown that, to my knowledge, the one he's asking about is the one that's not labeled. But Trevor's response is to the big red one. And then it kind of just ends the scene, which is fine because it doesn't need to be Ben going, "Well, no, I saw that numbnuts." It says it. What's the one that's not labeled? Because the focus is going to the world's deepest pit for the audience.
Yeah. It makes you wonder what the lack of news that is covered. Because presumably he gets all these locations off the news.
It seems like he's
So
watching a
you
specific
got the
show.
largest cow.
It seems like he's watching a very specific show, called like about roadside attractions. At least that's the implication that I got.
Yeah,
That's
could
what
be
I
that.
took
Could
out of
be
it.
news. I don't know.
It'd be weird if one reporter from one area is going all over for this to find stories. That would be other reporters. So it does, to me, it does come across
No,
as a show.
there's reporters that have their own jobs. Like you got the sports reporter, you got the attractions reporters. They have designations.
There
It's
could
not that
be
weird.
a news person that's just keeping everybody up to date for stuff like that. But I'm more inclined to believe it's a roadside attractions show. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, I didn't see at the bottom if there was a scroll talking about current events or anything. I didn't pay that much attention to it.
All right. I guess the last note I have before we can go into Act 2, which I could have saved, but I really enjoy the connection of camera work connected to Ben's character. Especially showing the unsteadiness usage in situations where Ben's uncomfortable or emotionally distressed. And in Act 1, when he goes for his interview, it's very, very faint until Trevor comes in, and then it gets a little more shakier, which I think goes to Ben being a little nervous and uncomfortable. And then also when he has his talk with Janet, it's a little shaky of him sitting down. But then when Janet speaks up using her words, it becomes more apparent the camera is moving, which I think is just building onto Ben being uncomfortable. As well as when he barges into the room to yell at Trevor, it's also shaky.
I have a note to add to your. I like the fact that the camera angle makes Ben feel small when asked why he wants to be a caregiver.
Was it a top-down shot?
Kind of, yeah. It's more of a straight on shot. Like they're not playing with the rules of thirds. He's like dead center of the camera, so the room is like looks more expansive around him.
Oh, okay. Yeah. The shots themselves are very on par and good, I think, but I just like the actual usage that they have connected to Ben's character in emotions, which I don't see a lot in a lot of things. I also found, also save the big thing for the end, but I did find it very funny, the camera pan to the lady in the park when Ben's just eating an apple and Trevor's screaming away.
That was definitely that's a joke that landed for me. I quite enjoyed that one.
Yeah.
But with that, if that's... Yeah. Crimson, you were disagreeing?
No, I agreed.
Okay. I guess with that we can go into Act 2, which is from the bite of the James all the way down to the dinner date ending. And since we started with Crimson last time, we'll start with Ryder this time.
Funny enough, I kind of already picked my scene about the.
If you want to continue the bite of the James?
Yeah, we'll continue the Slim Jim thing. Did you guys feel so? I guess since Crimson already answered, I know it pertains to the rest of the script. I don't know why it just felt like to me an ad-libbed scene, which would have been fine. It just clashes with the rest of the humor for me, thus far.
I agree. It feels like an ad-lib scene by how many cuts it keeps going between Trevor and Ben, and I don't think it's a reused shot of Trevor looking back over at Ben because it happens twice. I think it's just like another take kind of thing, but they just kept it all in.
Yeah.
Which makes it feel definitely longer, but again, with Crimson's point that the Slim Jim is a pretty big part of usage throughout the film continuing on from here, that the use of it's okay, but for a joke aspect coming across, it does feel long comparatively to everything else we've seen in humor.
Okay.
All I get out of it is Slim Jim's paid a lot of money. So, and then you get the little sprinkle of apple at the end on the.
Yeah, the Slim Jim marketing for this.
I do have a. So yeah, I guess it is a very minor objective issue I take with the scene then, because I like ad-libbing. The problem is it just clashes with the rest of the humor, and while I'm fine with different senses of humor, this ad-libbed had a bit more slapstickiness to it, which is just different from everything else. But I will. But Slim Jims are important to the rest of the script, so good on Slim Jims for getting their money's worth out of this advertisement.
Do you two, being that we already touched on it, do you two think it's good that there's multiple instances of Ben trying to help Trevor stand peeing up throughout the road trip rather than just the one instance at the end?
Yeah.
Do you think
I
that
don't think it
strengthens or
detracts.
weakens the end?
I don't think it weakens it.
I think it confused me because I didn't take those instances as him trying. I took those as instances. Oh, he's already peed standing up. So why is this now happening? Like, why is this such a big thing? Obviously,
the detractor.
What'd you say?
So you do see it as a detractor then?
I did. Yes, it got. I've since recontextualized it. I did see a detractor at the time, but this one is arguably more Trevor. The last one is obviously more Trevor doing it under his own power rather than with help. Even though he technically still has help, Ben's not holding him up, you know. So I think it still works for me as a payoff.
Yeah, he's his own guy there. He's not getting hugged or held up physically by someone else. He's on a plank, obviously, in restraints. But that would be a very different feeling, I would imagine. And all the other times at the rest stops and stuff, he isn't performing right. He's not aiming properly. But here, he didn't miss. It'd be amazing if he missed.
It's kind of hard to
So
miss.
yeah, so, I think I don't think it detracts. I don't know if it adds, but I think it's fine.
Yeah, that's kind of where I've come back to. I think it's fine. Um,
I have it evened out as fine because I think one thing I like about it and one thing I don't like about it. I think if it was just the one line we have of Ben saying like what you want to do, and it showed the ending because he didn't, who knew an ambulance was going to be there in order to achieve that. I think that shows how much of like like a big payoff of like wow he did listen to him or care from the very beginning kind of thing to strengthen the end. However, with the use of it throughout the film, I think shows more of Ben caring constantly because he doesn't know of the ambulance thing. So I think for what we have in the film, it strengthens Ben's continual care for Trevor. However, I think without that, that would be more of a movie payoff moment situation.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely prefer the Ben caring aspect of it because it's an achievable goal for him. If Trevor was like, I want to run a marathon if I could walk, Ben's like, well, I can't do that. But his answer was peace standing up. That is an achievable goal. He also notices that Trevor is like really into women and wants to interact with one. So once one comes forth, he helps pushing that forward. So yeah, I think it's good for Ben to be doing that throughout the film.
Okay, and that brings up a good question. If Trevor asked to run a marathon, do you think Ben would try to achieve that for him?
no.
I don't think so. It's not an achievable goal. He could maybe cheat it where he goes to like a recording studio and puts a green screen up, kind of like a news thing. Like, all right, look at you, you're in a marathon,
I
and
mean,
he could
there
try to
is
make it a lighthearted thing.
there
But
are there are there's there the other thing he could do is he could try to get because there are like uh not marathons but races
fun
for
runs.
you know
Where are you going with this, writer?
Crimson said to pause.
Oh,
No, no, I said fun runs.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I heard you say pause, so I just
Sorry.
stopped. uh, fun goof. No, but no, I thought the point of, so he could. Man, you made me lose my train of thought. God damn it.
it sounded like you were going with like disabled Olympic Games.
Yeah, disabled Olympic Games is where I was going with that. So there are, I guess, ways for Trevor to compete in such things if that's what he chose to do. But I don't think Ben would be able to help him with that. That would be something Trevor would have to choose to do and want to do.
That'd be more of like well, he's a very prick-like, jokey character, so I don't know if that would be like a serious Make-A-Wish idea change.
It would change the direction of the film. Do that.
Because Make-A-Wish would, I think, have more power in like getting to run a marathon in some sort of aspect rather than like call Make-A-Wish to make me pee standing up.
One's more easily attainable than the other. Yes.
What do we think about Trevor's fake out with the Slim Jim?
On brand. he uh, he pushed you really far though.
He did.
I guess that's a good question. Did any of Trevor's fake outs get you? Either of you?
Um, I guess it's not really Trevor's fake out though. The pregnancy at the end got me, but that wasn't really Trevor.
Oh, you thought the emergency call from Dot was going to be a fake?
No, that it was for Trevor,
No,
not the
that it was
pregnancy.
for Trevor,
Oh,
not
okay.
for Peach. That got me. That was a good subversion, which we'll talk about later. But Trevor's actual things, no, I don't think they got me.
This one got close up until like up until he opened the door to get to Trevor. I'm like, oh, this is probably another fake out.
Yeah, it's the meta sense
Yeah.
for me. I'm like, okay, this is too early in the movie for this to actually be serious.
Kinda, yeah. That's kind of where I went with that as well in my head. I'm like, all right, it's still too early in the film. Um, the fake out that got me though was Ben's.
With the
The
pills.
medication.
Yeah,
Yeah, that one was good too, because that
I
one's
do
late enough
know.
to be believable.
I do know. My first watch through, that one did get me.
All right, so I got all of us. Good job,
good.
writers.
Yeah, see, good job. Do what Ryan Johnson never could. I approve.
Uh, I guess Sprinks, did any of Trevor's get yours if you remember?
I remember the second one being how long it took. I was questioning it, like, oh, this could be very severe because when Ben opens the car door, he's still choking, and then he's like going to help before he breaks into laughing, and I'm like, wow, this is, you really pushed this one, um, but not as badly as when Ben like said he forgot the pills. Then I'm like, that one felt more real because of Ben's character.
Mm.
But then again, it's to me also in character for Ben to do something that far along.
Oh yeah, I totally believe Ben would pull the prank. I just wasn't expecting it, because you never really see Ben pull a prank that
He hasn't
far.
retaliated
Yeah,
like that yet.
yeah. So is
Uh,
it good
how
place.
far do you think Trevor had to go for Ben to do that? Like, if Trevor did the choking thing but stopped before they pulled over, would Ben have done the pill joke? Or the fact that he stayed till he had to pull over, about to pull him out, and he's like, "All right, I got to get you back for
Yeah,
this."
I think
Well, we've only
because
seen two of them, right?
yeah.
Two choking bits.
Yes.
Okay. Because for all we know, from how long he's known Trevor, there could be 5 or 6 or who knows how many.
um
Well, we don't get anything that says that, but it could be.
I
All
think
I
it's
really
I
get is
think
that it's the second one we see, and Ben is mocking him choking.
yeah, I think if you're asking what pushed Ben to that point, honestly, it probably could have been on his mind from the very start of the trip. He was just waiting for the right moment because it's only going to work the best time once, you know.
Mhm.
So him trying to, him pulling the prank then and there is the right time to pull the prank because he's just finished getting ready for his first date.
Yeah. And Trevor's already full of nerves at that point, so it's not like getting him into a state of nervousness to deliberately make him feel bad. He's already halfway there. So
Yeah,
I think it
that.
was good ease for Ben to take that opportunity.
Mhm. I liked their relationship throughout this whole thing, but the moment Trevor agreed that that was the best time for that joke, I'm like, all right, this is solid. This is peak relationship here. This is good stuff.
Yeah, at that
Uh,
point, it's earned. Um,
yeah,
I love
we
all
don't
of
need
them.
no melodrama here. They know each other well enough
Yeah,
to
they
do
they
these
earned
jokes.
their friendship, and I even think the relationship with Dot's actually pretty decent as well. Um, obviously, I have Peaches has a service to put in the story, but she's the only one that definitely feels tacked on.
You took my point I was going to bring up, Ryder.
Then you take it away, sir.
Freaking Peaches, man. Can we get her out of this? She really drags it down for me. I just see her as they're like, all right, we want. Usually these movies end with like the disabled person or what have you have an issue at the end, and then that's the big climax. We got to subvert that. How do we do that? Someone else has the emergency instead of Trevor. All right, let's make this Peach character where she is giving birth instead, so we get that payoff. And that's all she is, and I did
That's
not
all
like that.
she is.
And
Dude, that is all Peaches is to me.
I
Is the payoff to the
Don't agree.
subversion. Okay. I mean, she has a good talk with Ben, I guess, but we don't really need that if that's your reason to keep Peaches in here.
Peaches is a example of another form of father that this film shows multiple examples of, and this one is a loving father who's not around.
We already have three fathers. We don't need a fourth one, and we don't even. We don't know he's a loving father. You can't say that. We don't know what type of father that guy is. He's not even a father yet.
I mean, he's not a father yet.
So
I guess in a
no, I think Peaches is just there for the end.
Here's what you because here's the thing. I've used Peaches more as a tool than I do a character. But that being said, I don't deny she has character traits that I like about her. If they wanted to justify her place in the film, give her Dot's speech to say we're going to the pit, or have her
That's enough
start
to
and Dot pick it
justify
up.
I just agree that
maybe.
you said she's tacked on because that's all she really feels like. When we first got Dot's introduction, I'm like, oh man, I'm not. Why did they have to ruin this? I really like just the two of them on a travel, but I think they built Dot up enough with the three of them. I think that did well. But that is something they did not achieve with Peach. She's kind of just there.
No, I agree that Peach does not feel like a fitting member of their group.
Afterwards, when they were like, "All right, let's go see Dad," and they're actually pulling up, I'm like, "All right, new member of the crew. Let's get this car filled. Let's get Papa in here." Because it was just getting ridiculous to me with Peach. All right, they're just gonna keep adding people here. I did not really think the dad was going to join, but I did write in my notes it's time for him to be in the band.
Which dad?
Dots.
Oh, Cash.
No,
You don't think
I
Cash?
was referring to Trevor's dad.
Trevor's dad.
Oh.
Bob.
Yes, Bob. Jokingly in my notes saying it's time for him to join the crew when they pulled up.
Man, the film subverted your notes. How do you feel?
Well, I said it in a joking manner. I didn't think he was actually going to join. But I think he'd have more of a place than Peach if he was to join. He actually has more connections with the characters. Peach doesn't have anything other to the audience with an obvious connection. Like Sprinks is like, there's a father dynamic somewhere in there if you want to connect those dots.
That's what I feel this film
She's not
is.
close to anybody really.
I'm still stuck with what Ryder said, that she's more of a tool than a character.
I agree.
I think
with that,
that's true.
Yeah, I think she's more of a tool than a character. That being said, I think there are character traits here. I would want her. I would want her to keep.
She's not a plank.
Yeah, I'd want to keep her in the story, but I agree with your point that she could be removed and we wouldn't lose much.
We would lose the subversion.
We would lose the subversion at the end. I think I like her enough that I'd want to keep her, but I don't know if there's much to her. I guess, other than that, she feels a little bit tacked on.
I think she has more than that. But
well, I mean, sell her. Why?
Well, I don't want to go directly into Act 3 of the birth, but her being another example of a father situation with everything else going on shows just another point of view to all the characters of something to do with a father, which ultimately to me is this whole film is just all these different father figures and how they are and how a father to child situation goes. But I don't know how to rewrite or redo that end birth part with Ben's character some other way. And if it was just some random lady that Dot's like calling, an emergency, and just some woman giving birth, and like, Ben, help her, because even with Peach, they just say, Ben, help her, because I guess caregiver, not doctor, or someone who actually has to do with babies. But I think that would just feel more weak because Peach has more to her than some random add-in character that has nothing to do just to get that final like back and forth memory of what actually happened to Ben's son. To also go with the beginning of the film of the child laughing to baby crying. So I think Peach strengthens that way. But I do go with that because of these two examples, it's a tool usage and not fully a character usage. And I think she definitely could have been strengthened in some aspect. I don't know if that means she'd have to be introduced in the film earlier, but I just think more needed to be out of her with our band of characters.
If I were to the point of Peach as a tool is to boost Ben's character in the sense of both in the conversation that she and Ben have while they're watching Dot and Trevor on their date, and the uh, uh, and then obviously how it plays into the final act with pertains to Ben's character. All that has to pertain to Ben's like it's there to highlight Ben's character traits as a father and what he strives to be as a parent and a good person. So that's kind of that's for me is where the tool is, the purpose of her character is. If the movie had an extra 10 minutes, maybe less than that, I think there is a way that they could justify her place here a little bit more. The problem with that is that everything that we typically have a point of view of involves Ben because Ben is our POV character. So it'd have to be another interaction with Ben that would be more impactful for him. Um, that would help
More,
justify her place in the story.
yeah, a more adult perspective to match with Ben,
Yeah,
whereas Dot's more of a child,
yeah, I
or,
can,
younger.
and this is definitely going to cross the reasonable interference line. But one of the things that they could have incorporated into the film is that forming a functional relationship with Peaches as they watch over these two kids, not necessarily falling in love, but just forming a functional relationship as they watch over them during the road trip. I think that to me would help with Ben getting over uh, his his hesitancy in signing the divorce papers. I think that can be worked into this with what we have, and that would justify Peach's place in the script a little bit more. As we have it at face value, though, I think uh, if I were to use what we have to kind of infer that, I think that crosses the reasonable inference line. There would have to be more.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's enough for that.
It's a read you can take away from it, but I don't think there's enough to reasonably infer that. And because that's something I would want to take away from it, I think that working more of that into the script, being a more adult perspective, and like they're the two, they're the two adults watching over the two kids, because we get a sense of that already when they're observing the date. But getting more of that and building up not only Ben's character but his perspective and possibly her character as well, expanding on her, like why she felt the need to be on this journey with them, or outside of needing help and stuff like that. There's definitely more to work with here that we can just expand on to justify our place, beyond the much tool feeling that we get.
Yeah, the points I was going to make regarding her potential fixes or workarounds would be if we wanted to keep her in the way I think her being more involved with our group, because right now she's just there on her own journey to Nebraska. She's not connected to anybody. She's not doing anything. If we had a scene of her like talking to Dot, I know it would be away from Ben's POV, so maybe he's overhearing them or something. But her being the parallel to Trevor and Ben pushing this relationship going forward after she sees them in the car. Something that's actively engaging with Trevor's story, because this is ultimately Trevor and Ben, which is why Dot fits in, because she fits in with Trevor's whole story with being a love interest. So if she helped push that, that would have her connected with the group. It would give her some purpose. If we wanted to keep her in. If we wanted to remove her, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say the only thing that comes to mind with regards to what you're saying is, funny enough, we montage through it, but she's teaching Dot how to knit. She's teaching. She and Dot are hanging out and doing activities together in the back of the car. But again, that's montaged through. So.
Yeah, like if you wanted that added scene, it would just be Dot saying that she didn't go to sleep.
Or like if all she has to do is say to Ben, "Is like I faked going to sleep. Did it work?"
I mean, faking going to sleep.
I mean, like
What would that make a difference?
Well, no, that would justify her place in that she helped directly get them two of them together. Because the whole reason that they
Oh,
had
I
this
see.
idea of going together is because she went to sleep, and that's what gave Trevor the idea. Is like maybe you're too tired to join us too. So if she was proactive in saying that when she's coming to visit Ben is like, you know, she helped was making her go out because she saw that she was enjoying herself with Ben and Trevor. So maybe she didn't know about the date, but she still played her part directly in how they ended up on a date.
Sounds like a lot of smarts coming from Peach in that scenario.
Yeah, she would have knowledge she wouldn't know at the time because
Yeah,
Trevor's idea was the date,
yeah,
not Ben's
I agree.
or hers.
Like I said, I agree.
Um,
I don't have a. There's no, there are things to do to fix your presence. Is
yeah,
was
yeah,
the gist of what we're getting at.
so that would be my way of having her have a reason to be here. Is just push the relationship. And for me, they do remove her because I honestly do think just the ending's her reasoning. Her talk with Ben, we don't need that. We already have enough of the Ben stuff. That's kind of more for just him to talk to someone else, which we don't need. Uh, I was thinking what Sprinks brought up of some random woman getting uh, giving birth, and I was like, okay, we I like that idea. We would just need to build up to why they would send Ben to take care of that. And I think because we start with this with uh, Ben's kid happy or laughing, laying on the ground. If we had him helping uh, the birth, setting up that he does in fact need to or knows it, and that could set up some skill going forward. Perhaps Elsa could have told um, Trevor that he helped with the birth. That would be kind of a random thing, but that could set up something instead of just this random shot of the kid laughing. Him actually bringing his son into the world would help uh, push him towards actually trying to help someone else do it. Someone we wouldn't know at this point if we removed Peach. And yeah, well, I think that would be fine. I don't know about you guys, but I didn't care that it was Peach giving birth. I didn't have an emotional thing like, oh, she's finally doing it. I'm excited for her. I didn't care about her enough to get that. I don't know about you guys because
No,
she's a character.
I'm
She's just not.
I'm in the same boat. I did not care that much that it was Peach, but I do ultimately care about the connection of Ben's child and the laughing at the beginning to a baby crying.
am I gonna have a hot take when we get to the third act?
Because Crimson, what you just suggested seems like a lot of rework.
Is it if we just have a pregnant woman and then change the
Of
laughing kid to
so
a
like
birth?
Janet didn't go to a hospital, and Ben had to help her give birth to the baby, and so
Yeah.
that's the experience, and that's a story he shares of like, oh yeah, we couldn't get to the hospital in time, like with Trevor or someone.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they called because it's like, oh, we
like
know
that.
you've done it before.
Yeah. Seems like a simple little thing, not a massive rework.
Well, I'll think on it.
I'll bring it up at the end if Peach belongs on the remove character list. You can sit on it. We've talked a bit about her.
I'll jump to the going to see the big cow, Rufus. The first line the guy gives pretty much is that it's upstairs, which to me was an ultimately like red flag of why are you keeping a cow upstairs. Then again, that's with the assumption that it's a live animal,
which we see it's
I
not.
mean, there are barns that do have multi-level livestock, so it's not unheard of. And that's used to be where they slaughtered the animals, was track them up to the higher levels.
That makes sense. Isn't it a big thing like cows can't go downstairs?
No, what they do
I've
is they
never
put
heard
them in. Well, I've seen it on at least on one farm, so I'm not gonna say every farm does this, but they do put them in like a cage and they just transport them to the second floor. So uh, kind
An
of like a
elevator.
forklift almost.
Yeah, like Jurassic Park.
Let's not go that far.
Not
But
quite like that.
so yeah, it's not too abnormal, and the fact that the cow's fake, I think, is perfectly reasonable that it's on the second floor.
Oh, the fact that's fake,
Well,
absolutely
not fake. Sorry, it's stuffed.
stuffed.
It's I forgot what they called it. It wasn't like the slaughter floor, but it was something like that. But they did it with sheep as well, where they had the Judas goats. And I think it's a whole on the livestock.
I really like the comedy shots of them trying to get Trevor up the stairs, but unfortunately, everybody gets demerits for not thinking of the obvious solution of just carrying him up the stairs.
What? How dare you propose such an absurd comment?
It's such an obvious solution that everyone gets stupid points, unfortunately.
You mean picking him up there and then the machine, if they even want to bring the machine in the first place? Come on.
It was funny comedy bit, but unfortunately the solution is so obvious that it is an actual character issue that I have.
Yeah.
Now here's the thing.
hazard
They
here,
could they
what
could
they do.
lean into it. It could be one of Trevor's like nervous tics things, but the fact that no one brought it up first is still an issue.
Would it
I agree.
be? Would it justify and be funnier if, as they left, Trevor brought it up, like he knew the whole
Brought what
time,
up?
kind of thing? Like, hey, you guys could have just carried me out of my chair.
Well, that
Uh,
would just make Ben dumb, though.
that would
Ben would
that
have
would just serve
said
to make
something.
Ben dumb because Ben just watched.
Okay.
So,
It
unfortunately,
would be good for Trevor, not good for Ben. So Trevor would make people uncomfortable by forcing them to do that. Um, on the barn topic, I liked how Ben talked to the farmer. He a bit strong.
channeled his
Like he's
inner
kind of
Karen.
emotionally
Yeah,
charged here. Uh, but I did like him using like the news as a threat because it's a real threat. Really destroy business.
the comedy cuts were like I said. I'm still stuck on the comedy bits. I just the screaming at each other, and then just the calmly take as long as you need.
I really like the usage, just the
I
cut
think
to
we're
the
related.
eyes,
Oh yeah, as we get it closer and closer into all the character eyes and the cow's eyes, also really good.
and then there for 10 seconds. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
we're good.
took longer to get up there than to look at it.
I also looked up as a fact of Rufus had a little plaque next to him showing that he weighed 2,892 pounds, and I looked up what was the heaviest cow recorded, which is Craven. Oh, bless me.
Because
The heaviest cow was named Craven Heifer, which was back in like 1809, weighing 312 stones, which is estimately 4,370 pounds. So I don't think it's based on fact.
well, they said bovine and not cow, but bovine's a bit different. That is quite a difference, though.
Also, tallest cow. It didn't show like how tall Rufus was, but also like because I looked up different terminology for it. Um, the biggest cow was like 6 feet tall, or something.
Yeah, and the tallest horse is crazy to see a picture of. 7 or 8 feet tall.
700?
7 feet tall.
Oh,
700. Can't wait to
yeah,
hear that back if that's what it sounded like.
it's a Trojan horse. That's what you're doing. Let's see here. Crimson, you go with a point.
Trevor thinking about his father enough to want to go visit him based off of Ben's comments. Do you guys think they did enough for him to commit to that?
No,
Yes.
I love how that was.
you're welcome.
All right, let's go with Springs first.
I think Trevor being comfortable with Ben and everything going on, that being that they've already had a whole talk about father, and the letters before, it's not out of the blue to Ben over the situation. So I think Trevor is saying, "Hey, I think I have enough courage to do such a thing, especially in the company of people he cares about or is with who care about him. That it's the most comfortable time to do so, because I think it would be an instant no if he asked his mom about it from earlier on. So I think he's given a situation where it's a good attempt to try."
It's a no for me because at this point, we've fundamentally broken one of Trevor's character traits, which is uh, sticking to like a schedule and a plan. Um, and this is kind of where I've written in my notes that I wanted to know more about their journey and that actual planning session of what it would be like, because I don't know at face value what state they're going to. And I kind of wanted more details on the road trip plan itself, so I know how out of the way they would technically be going to get to, um, if at all, to get to the world's deepest pit. And so for me, the the issue I take with him suddenly wanting to do this is the fact that it's kind of inconsistent with what was given to us as one of his core character traits. And I'm fine with him it having been built up to, and it's his workaround way to like he's worked up to it. But we don't really get that. So
It is a change of his schedule, but we do see he changes that stuff. He takes the French toast instead of the waffle. He chooses not to sleep at the sleep app machine. So he's willing to change his own schedule. It might just be his mom who doesn't want to deviate, mostly.
it could be.
Trevor does say, like, don't tell her. Because Ben's first initial thing is, like, should we call your mom about it?
And obviously she would say no because she's the one that was writing them. Yeah. For me, I think they've done enough of their Trevor trusts Ben enough in his opinion towards it to give his father a chance. But something I didn't like about it was that he actually had the letters on him and he didn't read them.
Yeah, I also have that as an issue as well.
So it would have been nice if he read them in the hotel or something in the background, or like so we know he's actively thinking about it and then makes a decision.
Yeah, I'm going through my notes. I think my issue is more pertaining to that schedule thing that's kind of getting thrown out the window than it is necessarily him going to see his dad. So I guess I'm fine with the dad. Go being based off my notes.
No.
I can see it as odd that he brought the letters. I don't know why he would bring the letters. Not reading them, I'm totally okay with. He hasn't read like any of them. So continually not reading them is fine.
He didn't read them because he didn't want anything to do with his dad. But now he does want to do something with his dad. He wants to hear him out. And if you have years worth of letters, you'd want to read those to know what to talk about. If dad references letter 300 and you're like, oh, I didn't read that. I don't know what that was. He seemed like someone that would be prepared to do that. Obviously, he throws the stack like, I want to answer these questions. He doesn't even know if they're questions because he didn't read them. So,
no, I think that would just be something in the moment to talk about, because that's just change in character, and Trevor can tell that to his dad.
Oh, what to his dad? That he didn't read them?
That he didn't read them. Like if you gave that example,
he didn't do that.
300. Well, no, his dad brought up that it was. Sorry, that's next act. But I find it totally acceptable that Trevor didn't read the letters. It's a nervousness thing.
But the fact that he brought him in the first place, that's an issue.
That's the thing that's weird to me. Because what's the point of bringing them? Because he wasn't.
Well, it implies that he planned to do this with the dad. Because there wouldn't be a reason why he'd bring them.
Oh, so already trusted Ben enough at the time of going on the road trip that he wanted to go see his dad. He's just waiting for the
That's
opportunity to tell Ben.
That would
that's
be
what you have to believe,
yeah.
because there's no reason he'd bring him. If he wanted to bring him as reading material, but he doesn't do that. If his plan was to chuck him off into the deepest hole, that would be a good detail, but they didn't say that's something he wanted to do with them.
I think that's still enough time of Trevor trusting Ben enough to bring them for that instance.
Well, then it comes down to why didn't he bring it up earlier then? If he trusted him enough.
I think he's just. It's not about Ben. It's about his dad.
But yeah,
It's a sore
but
subject.
what changed? If he brought it in the first place, trusting Ben enough to want to go there, why didn't he bring that up earlier?
Well, the earlier would have been still on the road. It wouldn't have been around his mom.
Correct.
I think it was a test period for Ben, seeing how he's already nervous to begin with, which is why the shot of him clutching the blanket. So I don't think it was comfortable enough to see how the road trip would go. They got to one destination out of multiple on the map, and being how far Ben would go for Trevor in one instance, I think that gave him enough comfort and courage to bring it up to Ben.
What do you think, Ryder?
Focusing on the build up to where he's going to see his father, or focusing on the letters themselves?
The letters.
Yeah, I don't know why he would have them. The implication that he has them is that he planned from the beginning to want to go see his dad.
Yeah, and then I brought up the point why he didn't bring it up earlier if that was the case.
Yeah, like there's nothing.
Frank's just saying it was like a test period to see how the trip would go.
But he would still have.
But
he still brought the letters with him, which would be the issue with that being in the test period.
Well, if the test period was to fail, then it's fine to have the letters and nothing of it. If it passed, they already has them on them. They're not going to backtrack back to the house to go get them.
So he still planned to go from the beginning.
Yeah, which I already brought up.
He's trying to work around why he
wasn't time to trust Ben. Yeah, I said it would have to be brought up on the road trip because he wasn't going to bring it up around his mom. But I think because of how nervous he was by clutching the blanket, he was waiting for an opportunity to do that, which he brings up in the film, I think, at an appropriate time, which is after the first attraction him and Ben visit, since there's multiple on the map.
All right. I'll say I'm not swayed. Good points.
I have something that I spotted. And Crimson, I don't know how much you can partake in this, but I know Ryder and I are familiar with this in an aspect of something called the hero's journey, or otherwise known as the voyage of the hero, and the number 3. Now, Ryder, hopefully you can help me remember most of this. I wrote it down because it stuck oddly to me, of the use of the number 3 in the film. And my examples were when they have Dot in the car, and that there's a 3 years connection between these 3 characters. There's 3 years ago when Dot's mom died, 3 years ago when Ben lost his son, and when Trevor turned 3, his dad left. Also, when Ben was first asked to pick a number between 1 and 3,500, he gave the number of 3. So I think there's something heavily to use of the number of that in the film. I'm just not fully sure of the reasoning why. And I also think it helps give a really offset to Peach being a 4th, of not feeling connected as much. And all I can remember mostly from the number 3 of my teachings in high school of Voyage of Hero was Hamlet's play Macduck. Yes, I pronounced that correctly. Once a theater kid, always a theater kid. And the 3 witches in that tale. But I can't recall all the details of to why the number 3.
The only relation that the stage 3 in the hero's journey is just the refusal to answer the call on adventure. So I don't think it pertains to anything regarding that.
Okay. Yeah, it wasn't the stage. I just remember it being the same teaching of it, not directly to the stages.
You mean like all the related numbers?
Yeah, not so much of like what stage one of the voyage is between like because they differ of like a 7-act, 10-act, 12-act of the voyage, but more so the number three's importance or instance in such a story told of the hero's journey. Because to me there is a significant importance of the number in this film, Fundamentals of Caring. I'm just not fully pinpointed on the reasoning, but I feel like it's connected to that in some way.
Well, I don't have an answer for that, but a little bit of potential clarity with some of the examples you provided. The 3 years the son's been dead, him saying 3 out of 3,500 just bolsters the point that he's thinking about his son all the time. He's like, all right, 3 years since the son's died, the 3. Easy. There you go, number. Picking arbitrary that Dot is a 3 because Dot's there doesn't make sense because there's a 2 and there's a 4. So I don't see that as a significant 3 because they don't stick to it being a 3.
Oh, the group. Okay.
Well, yeah, because you used that as an example. As Dot was added as a 3rd.
Well, no, I thought the example
Peach was a 4th.
The example that Spriggs gave was that her mom died 3 years ago, right?
As
well, that was a
following
separate
example
example.
of Dot. Yes.
We brought up numerous examples. So there you go. That's my picked part of it. I don't know about this hero's journey thing relating to 3 because all I know is the 3 acts of the hero's journey. You got the start, the peak, and the end, the rising action, and all that stuff.
I don't know if I have anything explicit from the hero's journey either, to be honest. I'm running it through my head, and I don't know the numbers 3's significance is in relation to that as a whole. If not, as you say, it's not necessarily related to the stage, but I'm not sure what it would be related to outside of that.
Okay. I just remember it from teachings when I was in school. There was the number 3 was brought up of a reasoning connected to that lesson, but it's foggy. I can't really recall. But hey, if you listening understand what I'm saying or can help, let us know in the comments. Since it seems we're all kind of unsure.
It's not an impossibility. I know what you were meaning, in the sense of like, I think it was used as an example. Is what it feels like to me. Like it was just repeated in the story, but then again, it could be as simple as that. Hey, the 3 act, hero's journey structure or whatever.
Yeah. Otherwise, I wouldn't have written it down. I mean, it stood out to me of just like they all share the number 3 in some aspect. And Peaches, I don't think has a number 3 connection unless it's like 3 days past her introduction to giving birth. But I didn't really time that, and I don't think that's true. But I couldn't find any 3 on her. Like her husband's on his second tour, so I couldn't find anything.
Mm-hmm. I can jump us over to Dot's introduction.
Sure, let's go right ahead.
I think the first interaction is funny because Trevor can't talk to girls. And then I think it is there's definitely an element of convenience for her just ending up where they are. Later on in the story, when they decide to have her join the crew. You were going to say something?
I said absolutely.
Yeah, there's definitely an element of convenience. It's not as bad as it normally would be because they're traveling along the main interstate highway, which is what you would be traveling along. It's just convenient that they end up in the same spot, pretty much.
Same spot, same time. Yeah. And she didn't have a ride.
Yeah, they were already ahead of her.
So the
Which,
assumption is she got A rides from someone and then ended up there.
yeah,
At the same place at the same time they're dining there. Yeah.
odd thing to me is when they're in the car and right before Trevor brings up like I want to go see my dad, I believe Ben looks in his rear view and sees a car tailing him, which at that point we don't know, but is Cash. I found it weird that Cash is tailing them, that they've already left, unless he already drove by Dot and he's like looking for her and doesn't know, because she would be behind them.
Yeah, that was something I had as well.
That to
I
me was
don't have an answer.
didn't line up, unless I mean, it's not fully concrete of like an issue for me because it's a lot of like Cash doesn't know where could like exactly where she is. It's just a coincidence that he's behind them, which is just giving Ben a connection to him of like someone's tailing us like later when it's in this first instance not that. So it's like a paranoia built onto him, which I think is worked totally fine. At the convenience of I guess all of it connecting is the
The
that movie plot.
the issue with it is if he was at this point not tailing them and was just going down the road looking for her, the moment they stopped at the diner, he would have kept going past them and wouldn't have known that they picked her up and would have completely missed them.
Is it possible that he's already parked somewhere?
Oh, then
Like
that's
he just
just
has his
really
eye on her?
convenient.
Yeah, it's just I think they introduced Cash tailing them a little too soon. That one could have been easily avoided.
Yeah, I don't think there's a real workaround with it because they didn't pick her up yet, and he's following them. And if he's not following them, why would he stick around with them when they eventually do pick her up? At that point, he would have passed on and kept going because he knew where she was going. So he would have just kept going up the road, the direction she was heading.
I do like that Trevor's the one that initially tries to go out and invite her along on their trip, but he gets too nervous, so Ben is the one that does it. Something small. I appreciate it.
I mean,
Yeah, Trevor makes
more. I like that Ben went for it. He saw that he tried.
Yeah.
He didn't egg him on. Come on, you're halfway there. Just get it over with. And he's like, you put in the effort. I can respect that. I'll do it for you.
Yeah.
I really like the line of the selling point though, to push Trevor. If I went out there, you'd be looking at me doing it like you're sitting at a window like at home.
Yeah, treating the window as a TV screen.
Yeah,
I did like that
as
line
well.
as a selling point to get Trevor to motivate him.
I agree.
But Ryder, do you have anything else on Dot's introduction you want to touch on?
Sorry.
Or I guess her
I was waiting for
introduction
background noise to die. Sorry.
Oh. Or her character introduction to the audience.
Yeah. I like that she doesn't take their shit in the sense of like, but it's not like an abrasive personality. It's just that you can see how she'll fit right into the group almost.
In the diner.
Yeah.
She's very confident. She's a very strong personality to be as blatant as she is.
Mm-hmm.
Not many people like that out there, but they do exist. Yeah. I'll give that.
And she sticks to it.
Yeah. Her initial introduction, where she just compliments his shoes, is fine, I guess. He doesn't really seem like someone that would care to comment, but she did. So. I call back later.
Yeah, I like that as a reasoning of callback later, rather than just like at the table. I think it feels a lot more fitting for everything to be like, that's that girl again that you commented and all that, to go with the the mall joke situation and comedy there. Then hey, there's just a girl there. Like Ben just catches Trevor staring. kind of thing, like trying to make it an attraction awkwardness situation, and then bringing up, hey, should we give her a ride? I think the callback of familiarity to her helps with both Ben, Trevor, and I guess the audience perspective of Dot.
Yeah, I think it is strengthened by having it. I just don't feel like she would actually say it, but it's fine. I don't think it's character destruction. I don't know enough of her to actually say that definitively. It seems like she wouldn't care.
Which I guess also goes into, because I think if they did the same thing with Peaches, maybe it would be too much at that point, which is why they didn't. Because with Dot, it's, hey, it's her again situation. Let's go interact with her. She's a part of the story. But with Peaches, it's just like, hey, her car's pulled, over. Let's pull over. Which I think is good for Ben of like giving that caregiving situation of like, I'm gonna help out in need. But it's just a new character introduced and giving her a ride kind of thing.
Yeah, and also
Better
Trevor
yet.
and Trevor uses the situation as well to look cool in front of Dot.
Yeah.
We should help her out. Detour.
That line. What is wrong with you? You don't put a pregnant lady on a bus.
What if Peaches was Dot's mom and Dot lied about her mom being dead because she hates her mom? Boom. We have a relationship. We have a reason for Peach. It would rewrite everything. But
It would rewrite everything.
it would rewrite everything. There'd
It
be
would
an element of
rewrite
convenience.
so much.
I'm leaning like heavily like a no.
Honestly, the in terms of convenience factor, I think pretty much Dot used it all up for this film. Like, all the willingness I was willing to give the film, Dot pretty much took it.
Yeah, interesting take there, Crimson, but I'm no.
It is a direction they could have taken, though.
The movie would have suffered horribly for it.
I don't know. They've written a pretty decent film here. I think they could have written that to be good as well. Just be different.
A little bit of Peach and Cash, Peach and Dot, situation of like this family drama with Ben and Trevor. I don't know. There's something to work with there. I just think it's too much.
Yeah, so it would focus more on Dot than Trevor and Ben. And they focus just enough on Dot. Not too much. Not too little. Just right.
They're focusing on the dynamic they've established being Trevor and Ben throughout all their interactions with Dot. But Dot doesn't feel like tacked on. Mm-hmm. She's just an addition to their dynamic.
Agreed. Well, with that, Ryder, do you have a point to jump to?
I believe Dot was my point, but sure, I'll go again. I think. Here's where I found my original point where I thought the character traits with regards to Trevor might be his mom. As you said, Crimson. The problem is like he isn't. This relates to the check engine light on the. When they have that interaction, you can see Trevor freaking out a little bit. I think that's what it first highlighted to me, that he's not really matching up with the description his mom gave, with how important that routine is and stuff like that. We know that he's bullied caregivers to tears at this point. And his routine was a method for him to do that, or it's how he keeps himself centered. So my issue that I took away from that scene is that his personality is not really fitting with what we were explicitly given as exposition, which those should be working in tandem when you're writing a story. And I don't know if that damages Trevor's mom for not understanding how her son can go off schedule if he wants to, or if it damages Trevor in that it's an inconsistency.
Yeah, it comes down to absolutes, I guess. I mean, the mom is quite strict in regards to guidelines on how to raise Trevor, I guess. Protect him.
Which
And
we see that she's amenable to.
yeah, and she accepted to the trip. And then Trevor, we see several instances, which I brought up, where he doesn't abide by his standards with the waffles and the sleep out machine and stuff. So I think you're working on like two extreme examples of he's not exaggerated enough based off what his mom said, and I don't know. It's an interesting point. I don't know.
Alright. I'm asking for general thoughts because I don't know if this pertains into my final objective score. It could if like I think it's an issue. I just kind of want to get other perspectives on it. Sprinks.
Another perspective.
Well, I'm trying to think. No, I don't think that's an issue. I think it's because it's dark out that it's like an alarm. Like
I'm sorry, what?
that it's dark out, so it's an alarm to Trevor.
That is not my point that I made at all.
Oh, then I'm completely lost on what you meant.
Okay. What I was saying is his mom damaged for the over expository description that we get of Trevor? Or is Trevor damaged for not fitting that description? Because here we see Trevor is amenable to changing his mind on something he's very, very peculiar about. I'm not necessarily saying that's an issue, but I'm saying that is it an issue then that his mom has an bearing schedule for him, knowing that her son is capable of this with some issues, or is it an issue for Trevor because it's inconsistent, or is it both? Is what I was getting. Is my question.
Huh. I have it as neither. I guess if you want to go with one or the other, I'd say the mom then, because I think she's not. I think she's a very protective mother of why Trevor's on this very planned regimen of scheduled everything. When we can see on this road trip, it does not have to be met to the point of time for everything that needs to be met. So I think that's just her being an overbearing mother, but I don't see that as an issue or problem on her. That's just her not fully giving the capabilities of her disabled child.
Yeah, and I'll clarify my stance on it as I did for Crimson. I don't necessarily have an issue. I'm just asking the question.
Okay, I have it as neither.
Okay.
I think the big thing that stands out with it is Dot. She's kind of the big outlier. She's the reason he keeps changing stuff.
Yeah, Dot's the encouraging one. Yeah, like he's trying to look cool.
Thing the mom is not privy to. Mm-hmm. So her description of him could be completely accurate, but once Dot gets to him, then that's out the window.
Well, it can't be completely accurate because
toast.
Well, it can't be completely accurate because you've already had plenty of subtle changes throughout the course of the story up until this point.
The dad's letters being the biggest one, I think.
Yeah. My next question also has to do with character because that one I'm kind of ambiguous on. I don't necessarily think it's an issue that I have. I'm just listed out as a potential one. This next one, though, I am leaning towards it being an issue. Why would Ben tell Janet he was going to Salt Lake to suspect somebody was following him? The reason I have an issue with this is because he knows there's a court order out for him. So him giving away that he's going to Salt Lake for a while to his ex-wife who's trying to divorce him, who gave the court order, I think that's out of character for Ben.
Oh.
And if it's not in a character, it just makes him dumb, which is not a character trait I like adding on to him.
We don't know if he gave like an address or anything. I mean, Salt Lake City's big. It would bring to her attention that he is not going to be at his residence.
He says,
but if he gave a time frame of like, I'm going to be gone to Salt Lake City for a week, that gives a time frame and a destination, but an exact destination.
We're lucky that this doesn't manifest into anything because he thinks the person tailing them is someone sent to follow by Janet.
Yeah. based off the beans he spilled that he was going somewhere for a week. I'm not going to say it's the brightest thing, but I think it's within his character because he's pretty honest with Janet. He has no ill will towards her. He doesn't blame her for the divorce or anything. He's just not ready for it.
No, well, I mean, to clarify, he does explicitly, we are told through dialogue that he did explicitly tell Janet that he is going to Salt Lake. So they know where he's going, or she does. So in his mind, the
Yeah,
person
like I
following
said,
them is...
Salt Lake's a big place. It's
Yeah.
not. It's not an exact location. It's an approximate location. And she knows it's a short period. She knows it's a week trip. So, I think it's within his character to tell her that stuff because he still respects her and stuff. I agree, it's not very smart for a man in his position.
Yeah,
I
I
think
no, I'm
he
I'm
would
fine.
do
I'm
it.
fine with, we've already established he's not the brightest person. But okay. I was just curious.
Why do you think he wouldn't do it? If you
Oh,
think
because
it's
there's a
like
court order
character
out for him.
damaging. Yeah.
He wouldn't want to tell her where he's going because he doesn't need to be followed and harassed about divorce papers on the way. There's someone who's banging on his house every night. That to me speaks to that he just wants to get away from it. So him telling his wife will have intended consequences. The fact that he can't see that I view as a problem. That's why I'm
We
leaning
don't
towards
know
being
if
out
he
of
didn't.
character.
We don't know if he didn't expect it. We know he didn't like the result that someone was following him, but we don't know if he didn't expect that as a thing that could happen.
There's a court order out for him.
Yes.
Yes, that logically follows that there's going to be a consequence of someone coming to get you.
It's certainly a possibility. Yeah.
No, that's not a possibility. There's a court order out for him. He already knows this. It's a certainty.
There's a lot that would align for it to fit perfectly. I mean, so no one did follow him for the court order. No one did that.
Exactly. But the assumption is because someone already has the court order out for him and they're already harassing at his house, the logical assumption from the point of view of his character would be that someone is following him, and that is his assumption.
Yes.
And he's acting like he's surprised and outraged by the whole thing.
I don't know if he acted surprised. He was outraged by it. I don't know if he was surprised by it. Branks, was he surprised by it
I'm
and
gonna
then
go with
misread it?
Ryder.
Or...
You seem pretty knowledgeable on court orders. While you're defending the point, don't need details onto why. But what do you know of is the highest, I don't know, search party or like detective work that a court summons can send?
Without being arrested, you mean?
Private eyes.
I suppose so. Like Ben's not under arrest.
Yeah, obviously. For something low level like this, it would be roughly 2 months before it starts getting to the point of aggravation and sending officers. So, like I said, I'm fine with him not being followed. It's still within that time frame. I'm fine with him. I'm absolutely fine with him making the choice to going to Salt Lake. My issue is that he had no reason to tell Janet. It leads to unnecessary drama. Is my issue with him thinking that it's the person following him is specifically for him. My character issue is that he wouldn't tell Janet, knowing that there is going to be consequences coming out of that. Potentially, you're risking consequences, knowing how much Janet wants this, to the point where she already got a court order for it.
I think I'm with you on that. Yes.
You don't think he would accept these consequences?
No, I think he'd accept the
And go forward
consequences.
with
I
it
don't think he
anyways?
would call Janet. I think he would get Trevor in a situation kind of like what he does it very, very late. But I think he would just go up to the vehicle and apprehend at that moment or situation. Because right now he's still like speculating, but calling her directly is him. Actually, that's not speculation. That's him coming to an assumption. And it's not like Trevor pushed him into an area of
the inherent fact
anger
that
or
he
anything to cause
the
the
inherent
call.
fact that he assumes he's being followed is what makes it a character issue.
Well, he didn't assume it the first time he saw the car. He acknowledged that the car was there. He assumed it once he saw the car again, which a lot of people would assume if they see a car following them again, that someone's following them. And he has reason to think someone is following him after that deduction. You can connect the assumption to something personal. But in terms of motive of why he would tell Janet, I think it just boils down to respect for her, because if he didn't tell her, she would still send guys and they wouldn't know where he was and they would think he just ran. Poof, gone. Vamonos, he went. The fact that he tells her is to relieve her, so she's not stressing out more than she already is about the situation. He doesn't want to hurt her, even though he is doing that. But not telling her hurts her even more than she is now.
Yeah, that's a really good point too, Crimson. Because that's the reason why he's not.
That's how I read it. Sprinks teeter-tottering or still on?
No, I think he swayed me a bit into the reason why he would call her then out of respect, but I think he's too aggressive about it. Especially on a second instance of thought that he's being tailed.
Oh, you're going with the accusatory call. I'm talking before that.
Oh, before that?
Yeah, because obviously, well, that's in his head. He would have told her about the Salt Lake City thing, and then she sent somebody. Did I throw any pebbles in the pond, Ryder?
You did. Well,
sorry.
For me,
Sprinks.
No.
I know I got pebbles in your pond. I didn't know if I got any.
No.
Okay.
You didn't move me much. You did move me on the fact that he probably, you did move me on that there was a reason that he could call her. I don't think I got enough to justify that though. The potential costs outweigh the benefits here.
Yeah. I tried.
You did.
Gave it the old college try.
You did.
Yeah. That's some real 50-50 now. Huh. Yeah. Interesting.
Okay. Let's see.
In any regard,
got a point coming from Sprinks.
I do. I found a different issue with which would spark this, which was the engine light. Firstly, that's not an engine light. That's a check tire pressure light. Secondly, they're on the highway and they're going a little over 20 miles per hour.
Fair points. I didn't notice the speed thing. I did notice the light, but 20 miles, yeah, that's a bit slow going on there.
Yeah. That's what I caught. I'm like, that's a...
Yeah, that's an issue. Yeah.
Especially when it cuts to show, like, them driving down the highway. I'm like, that's... no.
Yeah.
If they were going off the off-ramp, slowing down because of it, then, yeah, sure.
Quick question for you, Sprinks. Is the when you say where this act ends, which is is it the end of the date where the act ends?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you want to talk about the date?
No, I just wanted to make sure I knew where my notes ended for this act.
Yeah. When Trevor comes back into the hotel and he goes, wakes up Ben.
I liked how Dot handled the date. The asking of the date, anyways. Where she just
Where it was
point
pretty
blank.
obvious.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious. Are you asking me out on a date? Like, that would kill me if I was Trevor in that situation. Like, oh my gosh, deer in the headlights, 100%. I agree with Ben. What a macho thing you did there.
I actually really like the Trevor's actor in that scene too, because you can actually kind of see him working up the courage while staring at Dot to get to just say the word yes that he is working.
Yeah. And do you guys prefer that we get the Ben POV through the window, or would you have rather had Trevor's POV during the date?
Oh, the Ben POV.
I prefer the Ben POV since it's a POV for his film. If we were jumping to other POVs throughout the film, I would probably prefer to at least be shown that Ben is watching and then go back to the date. But since the entire movie is from Ben's POV, I'm kind of happy we just stay with him.
Yeah, I don't need to know what Trevor and Dot talked about.
It's implied. Or, well, not implied, but it's implied that they have a good time.
Yeah. Okay, I was curious. I also prefer what we got.
And Trevor obviously tried to more jokingly pull the prank on Dot about preparing to choke.
Oh, I'm like the asshole thing?
No, that was just good script writing. But then Trevor tries to pull the choking thing on Dot, and Dot just kind of laughs it off.
The asshole line, which I did write down, and I'm not an asshole, and since you want an asshole, my not being an asshole makes me more of an asshole than the assholes that you normally date because they're giving you exactly what you want, whereas I, by not being an asshole, am not, which makes me an asshole. To me, that just reminded me of Jack Sparrow on Honest People.
A good comparison.
Yeah. A dishonest person you can always trust to be dishonest. Yeah. I like Dot's reaction to his monologue too. He's like, I can't believe that made sense, or I can't believe I followed that, and then it just accepts it.
Yeah, and walks away. It's a very solid interaction. I did like that. I liked something. What are they saying?
Oh, good, cool. I'm glad you like something of the film.
That's clothing inside out joke. It was a very quick, witty comment back to him. It's a snappy remark. I'll dress you with your clothes inside out. It's just so funny to me because he can't do anything about it. It's good. Really builds it doesn't build a relationship. It just establishes how good their relationship is.
More of the stuff you said you wanted at the earlier stages?
No, this already establishes that they have a good relationship. I wanted the build of their relationship because we just get the toilet stuff in the park messing around.
Everything being a little too clean is kind of where
Ben building his tolerance of Trevor's nonsense. That's what I was missing out on with the time jumps. And obviously we talked about Ben screwing up or not. But yeah, a talk from like 2 hours ago.
Yeah, just bringing it up, just checking on the stage of Trevor and Ben.
I do have a question for you, Sprinks. Since you were interested in numbers, did you find any significance with any of the numbers people were guessing, or Trevor's own answers with numbers?
No,
because his numbers were always different.
Have anything with the numbers other than, of course, being like, Dot, you got it exactly, just to impress Dot. No, the numbers he was giving off, no. But the payoff of what the numbers mean revealed in Act 3, I thought was really good.
Yeah, what, 1,500? Yeah, 3,500.
Yeah, why he even asked the question in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a good payoff for that.
I
Does
think I
anyone have
missed
any
that.
other?
Why does he ask the numbers?
Oh, well, when we get to Act 3, we'll let you know. Does anyone have any other points for Act 2?
This is where we set up a payoff for Handsome and Cool. It's,
Oh, yeah.
brought up 2 times, I think.
Well, he brings it up when Ben says he's a writer. He's like, oh, when you write about my story. And he goes, oh, 8 waffles, took a shit, 8 waffles, and then took a shit. He's like, say I'm handsome and cool. And then he brings it up again when they pick up Peaches.
I think my last note was after after Ben pulled his prank about having lost all of Ben's meds and his sleep apnea machine. I wrote down, well, the real issue now is because they're playing with expectations so much that if a real issue happens with Trevor, it's going to lessen the impact.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that
nothing happened to Trevor.
Yeah, pretty much. Because at that point, the impact would have been lessened. They've been playing with expectations a little too much,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't have anything else, I think.
And you, Redder?
I think I am good to go.
All right, on to Act 3, which is essentially from the car dealership of meeting Trevor's dad to the end of the film. And I guess we can go to the reasoning of the number, since Ryder was curious. 1 in every
3,500 is the...
Gets the...
There we go. The statistic of getting DMD, yeah.
Yep.
I missed
That's his connection with the number.
So, I'll start with a point. Let's see here. Bob Richardson is in fact an enormous dick.
What?
Okay, that was going to be a question I was going to ask. Scale of 1 to 100, where does Bob lie? 1 being terrible guy, 100 being amazing guy. Or dad. Amazing,
let's go
dad.
with a 6. No, that's too low. That's way too low. Let's go with a 17.
Okay, Ryder, what do you think of
That might still be too low.
His dad scale there?
With 1 being the lowest, I'm probably at a 15.
Man. Okay.
Oh, actually, hold on.
Terrible.
Hold on.
That might be too low.
Hold on. I actually want to change my mind. I just thought about it. No, I think I'm actually in the 20s somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll go with final answer 32.
You said it was started at 8.
Yeah, well, I mean, I had to think. I had to think about fathers who are worse than that. So once I started getting examples in my head, he started going back a little bit. I think he's a very bad father, especially in the moment when caught off guard.
He actually accepted to see Trevor, so that gives him kudos.
Yeah, so like I said, he's not as bad as like Thanos, who's got really, really twisted ideas of fatherhood.
Okay. Yeah, for me, it'd probably be mid-40s, maybe 45. 50 not being the standard of a good father. I'm treating this kind of like my levels where like 70 would probably be a good...
like school paper?
Yeah.
You need a 70 to get a C kind of thing?
Yeah, more like that.
Oh, I went from...
Because I don't think he did anything outrageous here. He was obviously put on the spot. He was willing to engage with conversation. He didn't blow him off. The paying him off was the easy option, I guess, for him. Not the best option by far, but I think all things considered, considering he's been absent Trevor's entire life, I think he did okay. But there's certainly far better options for him there. I think he was trying to strike a balance between staying absent and also treating him as best as he could there.
Yeah, I'm like, he could have been a lower number if he, punched Trevor
Yeah,
out of the
another
chair.
child
Like,
beater.
Yeah.
yeah,
Shockingly, yeah, he didn't
could be
do anything.
worse.
Yeah, you caught me flat-footed with the question, Crimson. So
Okay.
I'm not married
But,
to
No,
my
he's
number.
still a scum.
Yeah, because everyone was. I mean, even I didn't like Ben's look to him because, like I said, I feel like Bob wasn't super egregious here.
No. At that point, he did earn the look from
Dot's
Ben.
reaction made sense
Yeah.
to me. Obviously, flip him off and whatnot. And Trevor leaving made sense. Bob's stern disappointment, anger face. Maybe a little much for me, based on
You
how
mean Ben's
he really wanted this
stern
to go.
disappointment?
What did I say?
You said
He
Bob's.
said Bob's.
Whatever. Yeah, Ben.
Whatever you say, as
Eat.
you didn't fuck
Yeah,
it up so
yeah.
badly.
Now,
They're both
I
probably-
greatly prefer that Ben left to go after Trevor rather than confront Bob.
Oh,
And stay and
yeah,
talk.
absolutely. I don't think Ben would have stayed. He made the correct choice. I think he does. I think he would look at Bob that way, though. It makes sense from Ben's character to do that.
Yeah, I think after the whole bovine situation of like, we came here, we're doing this, that there's a possibility of Ben to do such a thing to Bob. You know, like you're a father or something, like kind of insecurities of himself, of his son, off to Bob, but it seemed more important to take care of Trevor, which I'm glad
Yeah,
that's...
the angle I'm going with it is like he was blatantly rejecting the opportunity to be a good father, whereas Ben lost the opportunity to be a good father. So I took a lot of that in his just personal anger as well, in that not just his attachment to Treasure.
All right. Well put, Ryder. You got me on that one.
Yeah.
I'll accept the stare.
And then we kind of talked about this fight, but because we had to talk about the fight with regard to some of our earlier conversations, but the fight between Trevor and Bob, God damn it, Crimson, Ben.
They both start with B. Why'd they have to do that? Okay.
They both have 3 letters in their name.
Why couldn't his name be Zorp or something? I don't get it.
Need more Zorp.
Yeah. Did you say the first Z word or the second?
Broke 99, everybody.
Check it out, our coverage of the pilot.
Another plug.
Love pitching.
Yes, the argument. I think they did a pretty darn solid job here. I think they built up enough of this. Trevor is one to read into people's thoughts, and I think it makes sense for him to read Ben wrong here. That there's enough of the knowledge he got from his mom, enough of this whole trip and the weeks he's been with him to infer that. And he's at such an emotional state to just blatantly say that instead of think about what he says. I think definitely fits here. And I think Ben's reaction to Trevor's retorts was also on point, because he never babied Trevor. He treated him as a full-grown adult. So I think
It's part of why Trevor likes him so much.
Yeah.
Springs, thoughts on the argument?
Not much, actually. I think they were both giving good points about the situation in their own perspective.
Okay.
Yeah, I quite like the argument as well between the two of them. So here's an interesting question: was Ben lying about not seeing Trevor as a, initial replacement for his son?
Interesting how you bring up the question, because I wrote pretty early in my notes that he was treating him as a replacement son, and was using this trip as a vessel for his feelings. So I do think he was lying, partially.
I think it's a white lie.
Yeah, I believe his motive, but I also believe Trevor was right as well.
Neat. So we're all in agreement on that. Funny enough.
I think it also just goes with the conversation, or I guess their relationship. that they're not to the point of using each other for their own beings, but to not even leech, but just like have each other's presence in an understanding way of usage. Like Trevor is using Ben as a means to actually get there because his mom would never, but then Ben's also using Trevor because of, like, as Crimson just said, a vessel of his own son, but they're not like 100% reasons for both.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the other two that just are sitting in the background,
Watching this happen.
Yeah. Because I was thinking, where are they? And then you can just see them in a couple of shots just far behind a car.
Yeah, they're watching, but because they know it's they're not
That's
really.
not their argument.
Yeah, exactly.
It would not be appropriate to intervene. I don't think.
Would Dot intervene though? I don't think Peach would, but Dot, I could see her batting for Trevor. Even though it's not her place for that.
Or like how long it would go if Ben started raising his voice or touched the wheelchair.
If the argument went along further, I think Dot would have stepped in, but they maintain a respectful distance. They're not really getting in each other's faces and stuff like that, and it's not ongoing. So yeah. I do think there was a point where Dot would have intervened, and I think Peaches would have intervened because Dot intervened. But
yeah,
that again, I don't think we reached that point.
No, Ben stepped in front of Trevor's wheelchair once to stop him. I think a second time may have gotten an intervention from him, but jump to a point I got because of the conversation with Cash that Ben has before getting the call from Dot. There is a bit of a kind of time jump, a little, to Ben being kind of down a hillside on the opposite side of the pit, and you can see the crowd before booking down there. From the time of the conversation start with Cash of like knocking on the window.
Yeah, they teleported to the base of the pit.
It's 2 minutes and 9 seconds, which pretty much is in real time because of the conversation with Cash. So yeah, they teleported to get to the bottom of that pit.
No disagreements.
Yeah, it was one of my blatant issues with this final act here.
Also, another, I guess it's a nitpick I have situation. Ben never gets Cash's name, and just that it's Dot's father. And then later, when he gives space for like a goodbye of Dot and Trevor, he says, "I'm gonna go talk to Cash."
Oh yeah, so
it could be an opportunity of them walking up from after like Peaches and everything from down in the pit up that they talked about it, but it's never shown there that he knew his name.
Fair.
Yeah. I don't think his name is
could
mentioned.
Be like a deleted scene or something.
Could be.
Yeah, I wrote down because that was a pretty sizable crowd of people just watching. Feel like somebody would be able to do something. Not necessarily a doctor, but
I don't know. Anybody could have called 911 before he got there. Would have been nice.
I would hope they did and didn't just listen to when he said call 911.
I'm sure they've already called, or at least somebody.
I would hope so.
I think what they could have done was lay down jackets.
Yeah.
Because every movie ever, there's always a doctor, but of course, not this time.
No, there's a caregiver.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Hinted at it earlier, but we got the big subversion here. The one where you think it's Trevor. He's the one in trouble. He's the emergency, and it's not the emergency.
He is indeed not.
Random pregnancy, which she said she was weeks away from. That's a pretty early baby, I guess. It's possible, yes.
I don't deny the possibility.
And she said it doesn't feel right, but then nothing came of it. I was like, how dark is this going to be? How dark is this movie going to be?
I can tell you what's not right. That's not a newborn that comes out of her.
There's some that have hair if you're going with the hair thing.
If it's weeks before, it would be, well, no, it's not a preemie, but or is that technically a preemie? If it's
A funny word.
there's
I
certain
don't.
like dates
I don't know
before
the
the due
time.
date that
Yeah, I don't.
give names to certain things, but so I don't know if that's a preemie baby, but it's definitely not newborn, and there would be more afterbirth on it in a situation like that. I think they angle the camera at a point where you don't see an umbilical cord.
Right.
So
Yeah, part of me wanted there to be a complication just because of how horrible that would be, but that would angle this movie in a different direction.
Not as hopeful.
And
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
that we've touched on it, I think I'm good that it's not a Trevor situation. That was a problem.
Oh yeah,
Expectation.
so am I. Like I said,
It's a
I
good
actually would.
subversion.
Yeah, like I said, I would have had an issue with it being a Trevor since they've played with that expectation for so many times at a certain point. Um, let's see.
Ryder, you hinted at the fact that you're going to have a hot take at the end here. You said
Yeah.
that earlier.
Normally, I like intercutting flashbacks with concurrent drama. I didn't like it here.
Okay.
God, that's boiling hot.
Is it well? Did it just not emotionally pay off, or just took away from one or
let's see.
the other, or the answer to what happened to Ben's kid was not?
The
well
reason I don't like it here is because the unintended consequence is Ben is entirely at fault for the death of his son. And for me, that was a big recontextualization for Ben's character. I didn't like dealing with that while also dealing with the concurrent drama. It'd be one thing if they, we got the full scene, but it has already revealed to us everything beforehand. So, what I didn't like about it is it was a revelation that Ben is entirely at fault for the death of his son. While also this is supposed to be like his redemption. There's no like those are both happening concurrently at the same time instead of one before the other. I didn't like the interplay between those two things.
Yeah.
I do think I would prefer if we just had the full flashback and then the baby instead of jumping back and forth.
Yeah,
But,
I probably would have preferred that as well.
I don't think the fact that we're getting the birth plus the revelation that he inadvertently killed his kid at the same time is necessarily a bad thing either. I think we could have both those at the same time.
And funny enough, I'm on the opposite end where I really enjoyed it. I think it was beautifully done. The laughter connection of memory of his son to parallel the crying of a child, but also the death of a child to the connection of a birth of one, and just the overlapping of both to give an explanation to what happened to Ben's kid, while also the events of what's going on now with Peach's birth. And I think the overlapping to me helped get to the point of the laughing of his son from the beginning of the film, rather than if the whole thing was like intersliced as one flashback to the laugh to then cut to the birth of the baby and kind of get rid of a lot of the Peach things, because I think the Peach things is also really good of showing Ben doing his best to help the kid and Dot holding Peach's hand, and there's not much of Trevor, I don't think, of like he's just sitting there looking at them, but the focus on Ben of the overlapping, I just thought the parallels of it worked real nice with an emotional touch.
Well, yeah, like I said, I normally like it in most stuff. I just didn't like it here, and I think most of it has to do with realizing that because it's revealed that it's his fault. You get a certain sense of like now uh, it's not inconsistent with the tone or the character. It clashes a little bit with what the writers are trying to pay off, which is he's redeeming himself here. Whereas I think if it happened more concurrently, as Crimson put it, I think that would be less of an issue.
Yeah, I unfortunately the scene was a little watered down for me because I
You
just
don't like
found it
pigeons?
well no well that's separate. It was how the kid died. I couldn't take it seriously. Um,
Oh yeah, no, that's kind of also goes into it, which is why I'm like, I think I like this on paper. I just have issues with the execution of it.
yeah, because I was like, okay, what factors do we have going on here? You could hear the car rolling. One, two, the kid is parallel or sideways to it. He has peripheral vision. He'd see the car moving. His back wasn't turned to it. And three, his dad's yelling, and all that happens, and he still gets run over. Um,
Yeah,
so
and the implication
seeing that just didn't work for me.
is the implication that he didn't get the emergency brake all the way up, and his car wasn't put in park.
Wasn't on park or something, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the emergency brake just didn't. He just didn't succeed in putting it up. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if the kid's back was turned and Ben didn't see it until right before, so the yell
Yeah,
wasn't
because
enough time to
there
alert
was
the kid.
plenty of time in the last shot where Ben's running towards him.
Yeah, so I think I really like the idea of him screwing up like that because that's something you don't usually see in anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the way they executed it left too much to where it could have been prevented. Or I think it's just the fact the kid didn't react. Like if he heard it, turned his head, and then got hit or something, better. But the fact that they act like this is what would have actually happened is what took me out of it because that's not how it would have played out.
I like for Ben in the instance it's not a full mistake because there are shots of showing him putting the car in park and using the emergency brake, but it just wasn't, actually locked in.
Yeah, so like I said, my takeaway from it is that it is Ben's fault, accident or not, at this point.
Yes, it was
Agreed.
his accident. Yeah. How'd you feel about the apple symbology? Thanks.
The apple symbology, like the apple's falling out of the bag.
Quite obvious. Yeah.
You're gonna have to help me out here. I don't find it obvious. What is the apple symbology?
Apples usually are symbolic of immortality, right? And the kid drops them and dies, but we get a link of death comes life. And what is the cycle of life but immortality, right? We keep going on.
All right, Crimson didn't pick that up at all, but you got it.
Why they choose apples? Why couldn't it be a Capri Sun?
You're right. No, it could be apples that, apples fall off of trees and the sun is connected to a family, of Ben's family. So this is like falling off of the family tree and, the sun passing. Could be a connection that way. But yeah, I never pieced that together or saw it in that aspect that you did.
Oh, okay. In regards to that, I don't think anything else for the flashbacks.
We already talked about how how did Ben deliver the baby?
He saw its head pop out and it just crawled out and he picked it up.
I guess so.
Well,
at least they didn't do the classic thing. Oh, somebody get water. We failed their in movie universe pregnancy bingo.
I'm not totally flabbergasted that he knows how to deliver a baby fully, because I'm sure he was at the birth of his son with Janet present. So
Okay, but then we could just attribute that to everybody there.
everyone's seen a kid birth.
Okay. I'm being hyperbolic, Sprinks.
He's saying as long as one person in that crowd was there during her birth, they would know how to do that.
I have an issue with the world building because it took so long. It took a while for Ben to run down there, and anybody in the crowd could have stepped in to help.
Yeah, I mean that's what did I write down specifically? I wrote something about that. I'm not going to be able to find it, but yeah, it's talking about why no one else is helping, because there's got to be somebody.
Yeah. Now, one thing that does bother me is, since this is a public destination, with like tourist attractions, they're pretty much essentially required to have like medical supplies on hand.
Medical assistance.
Yeah. They're required to have that on hand. The fact that no one was asked to go grab medical supplies from the office or anything like that is a bit of an issue for me. All the pieces are here to make this work, but I do think that some of them are just a little bit misplaced into making it like a really, really great climax. I do like the character relations to each other and why it's important for Ben to succeed. I liked it's definitely character focused over plot focus, which is, if I'm going to lose out on one, I'd rather the characters be what comes through and mostly unscathed. And then obviously the minor world building issues and plot building issues with like the convenience of everything and the stagnation of the world around them, so that Ben could have the moment. It's a shame, I guess, but I'd rather the characters be what have the payoff than those two things.
Yeah, I mean, again, that could, as you just said, could have been easily solved by the shot of when Ben's running down and the pan to show the crowd around. If one person was running past, and it's like,
he's like, you could just say, you can just see one person running in the opposite direction, and he's just like, I'm grabbing a med kit, and as he's watching him run down. That's all he'd have to say, and we'd be good,
Yeah.
And all the people he does run by don't react to anything.
No.
Welcome.
As long as the words, a woman's giving birth or pregnant, because then that gives away the subversion.
Yeah.
Until when he gets in the crowd, and then we know it's not Trevor.
Yeah. All the person running in the opposite direction would have to say is like, I'm going to get the med kit. That's all they would have to say.
Yeah. We're telling other people to call 911.
Yeah.
Okay, on a lighter note, they reuse a pan shot for comedy that I like with Cash, when Ben and Dot are saying goodbye, and he says, all us perverts keep in touch.
Oh, and we zoom in on Cash's face.
On Cash.
Yeah, that reaction is pretty funny.
Yeah, I liked that over the first one we had. This one was pretty solid. Almost got me to laugh out loud. Almost.
Rare day when a movie succeeds at that.
Yeah. Also believe this is possibly one of, if not the most cheerful cinematic P's I've ever seen in a film.
I don't know. Green Mile, I think, has a beat.
I think I'm in agreement with that. Green Mile definitely has a beat, but it's good. I like it.
I would agree it's up there. Yeah, the only thing that took me out of it a little bit was the visuals, the visual effects they did.
Yeah, it didn't feel on location.
This was Netflix, right?
Yeah.
Why didn't there was like no CG in this, and we get this. Why couldn't they have actually made this look really good? The bridge they're on.
I don't know why they couldn't just do it on location, to be honest.
Well, I don't know if that location they filmed at has that overlook bridge that they're on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was the only thing I didn't really care for. And I liked everyone's reactions to hearing him and then looking up to see a guy peeing off the edge there. Good stuff. Good payoff. I don't think you'd be able to convince paramedics to give up their equipment for that, but
That's
because there could be
I
some
think
liability stuff with that.
I think they would, but they would be supervising.
yeah.
So like it would be just a simple thing of just them in the background in the way that Dot and um, Peaches were when they were arguing. I think them in the background, like at the end of the railing, watching. I think that would have been enough. Because if in those shots, you could just still see them bite down by the ambulance, and I don't think that's what they would do.
Yeah, if they were to give it, which I don't think they would. Yeah, they would be close.
Yeah.
With that.
I think they would. Then again, I have a lot more familiarity with people in the medical field. My dad was a paramedic for a while.
And would he give strangers equipment that weren't in the medical needs?
They definitely did when they went to elementary schools to let kids like look at their stuff.
Okay, well that's different.
No, well, I'm saying knowing people in the medical field, it wouldn't surprise me that they do that. I don't have any anecdotal experiences to talk about with regards to it, though. Who knows? Maybe I'll ask my dad.
All right, topic for recap if that ever gets remembered. Probably not. The ending here, the final subversion. This was not the final subversion.
Oh,
it's true.
Writing.
Yes, top notch. I really like it. I'm so glad they didn't go with the cliche route of
him dying
all
off
these, like,
screen.
medical movies. Yeah, they always have the main guy die, or main person. 5 Feet Apart didn't do that, but a lot of them do that. And I like how they played it off like that. Good, solid, got me.
I'm in agreement, actually. I quite like the subversion. And it's also a character move for Ben too because he's picked up writing again.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the subversion to help with that is that Ben wrote was, and not is.
The
is
grammar
that a slight
machine.
error that Trevor was handsome and cool?
That wasn't an error. That was he's trying to fool the readers as well.
Yeah,
as
that's
Bradley's trying to fool the audience.
it's part of the hook that he's writing.
Okay.
Yeah, that was intentional. That's why he smirked when he wrote the final line. But of course he was fake.
Anna quit the next day.
One line of dialogue I actually really like, just one word usage, is in Dot's goodbye to Trevor. She says, "You have my number, so text me rather than call me." I just found that humorous because he can't.
I mean, if you put it on speakerphone.
Well, yeah, that's still calling.
He could do voice to text. That's a thing.
Wait, what? Why can't he call?
No, he can't text.
Oh, I see. Okay, I understood
you're
the
gonna
opposite
text
of what
me.
you were going with.
You can definitely do voice to text. That's something that's been around for a while now.
Well,
but do you mean that she's poking fun at him because he can't?
I think she's making fun of him.
Okay, either way it works. Like it's not out of character for her to be making fun of him.
That was just one word difference joke that I'm like, that's funny.
I'm also glad she didn't necessarily get a happy ending Dot with her dad. It was just more of an understanding that she's still going through with her plan. Because it wouldn't be a magic fix. Oh, he followed me. That means he cares. So I'm glad they didn't take the easy happy ending route with that.
Yeah.
I agree.
Oh, how's everyone's notes looking? Much at the end here.
My last note I wrote on here was I wonder who picked up Peaches to take her to Nebraska. Because we don't really get an end to her story. She's just pregnant and gets carried
Taken
away
to
to
the
the
hospital.
hospital. And now she'll have a baby while hitchhiking, I guess. I should probably call her mom, but it was a funny thing to think about.
Yeah.
Just get ditched at the hospital.
Yeah.
Two things I have left, or actually three things. Ryder, how many do you have?
I have one, so you go ahead.
All right. First, the credits show that this is based on a book. Ryder, do you have something to add to your library?
No.
He's still
Okay.
finishing Secret Garden.
I don't.
I
That's what I
have
was just
nothing.
asking.
I have nothing to add to my library because all my books are now in storage. So, no.
Okay, that's not what I meant. But okay. Then you go.
Sure. Well, actually, never mind. We already talked about this point. Never mind. It was about the whether the peeing was the payoff or not. I just found my notes for that. Whether it was like good, whether it was a good payoff or whether it was a taken away from.
One note I see I missed was the hotel where the dinner date was, like where Ben was watching from. The hotel number was number 3. So just another connection of usage. But what I have is actually a editing usage of blurring in and out of scenes. Did either of you two pick up on any of that?
Yeah, they did that heavily with the flashback stuff, but
Yeah,
they did utilize that here and there.
Yeah.
the
I
flashbacks was the most notable for me.
Yeah, the flashbacks had blur outs rather than blur ins. Like it would show a shot and then blur out before cutting. However, instances like the date and the hotel earlier on were blur ins, so it was blur to start and then focused on a point. And I think the usage of that is Ben's perspective of the blur ins, being that it's from Ben's perspective of the camera usage. So also with the editing now, is taking him out of thinking about his son and put him in the moment of a situation of what's going on. Whereas thinking about his son is blurring out to get past that and move on.
Possible. I definitely saw the techniques utilized, and then they had the crossfade with the day and night, the another fade technique they utilized there.
Anyway, that's all the points I have because we already touched on the second day of meeting Janet for the divorce papers. Now everything's more colorful and less saturated. Just more
He
of like
is
keep moving on
fulfilled.
kind of
He
thing.
can move on now. Yay!
They bought a lot of Slim Jims.
Yes,
Yeah.
they did.
They were passing them out to everybody. They were stocked. That was their breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Trevor and Dot agreed that like no other food needed to be invented or something in the car.
Yeah.
Again, good dialogue.
All right, if that's everything, then I guess we'll move on to ratings and summaries.
But wait,
Oh
there's the
shoot!
final question I hinted at earlier, but just remembered I said it. Is Peach removable?
Is there an
Good,
order
good
to
answers out of
answering?
that. Sure, Specs, you can go first.
No, she's not removable. She needs to be touched on and worked with.
Okay. I think she's removable. The fact that we can swap her out with a civilian, and then for me, just the idea of tweaking the flashbacks to give a background for him helping people during birth is enough. Writer.
With the only thing that we don't even need to give it to a civilian is the issue. If we could just give the end. I wouldn't like it, but the end thing could just go to Trevor. It would be his emergency.
It'd be pretty different though. That would change the rest of the ending. Because then he'd have to be carted away in an ambulance, and then he would get the whole goodbye with Dot. That would change a lot.
All right. I'll go back to my, I guess, answering the question. Um, yeah, she's removable. I prefer she be in here to work and stuff to work on, but with as she is, without doing any touch ups and work ons, she's very easily removable. The only benefit to having her in here is that you meet her before she's the cause of the emergency.
Just to set up that she's the emergency.
Yeah.
Well, that's 2 out of 3, which is not unanimous.
So
Yeah,
the other
on
2
the
points of
list.
her don't matter to you two. It's just her usages for the emergency.
What
I
do
mean,
you
they
mean?
matter small, not enough to warrant her existence.
Yeah, no, I said I like them Sprinks, but it doesn't necessarily warrant the necessity for her to be in here.
It's something we talked about with League of Their Own, right? Where we were talking about the reason of having a second scene in the church, where you're like, oh well, we learned that they go as a group more than one time, and my argument was that's not that's not necessity. We don't need to know that, so that's fine to get cut. We could learn that they like milkshakes, but that's not important information. We could cut that. So yeah, she had stuff here, and it would be missing if she's removed, but it's not important enough to warrant her existence. That's my point on it.
Alrighty.
So she is not removed, just like
Yeah, it needs to be unanimous. So
Chang and Relic Hunter. I think Ryder was the odd man out on that one.
Yep. And I think now we're done to go to.
Okay. Just check. Let's start with Ryder, actually.
Oh boy. Okay. So I'll do my subjective. I really didn't know what I was in for because I didn't know I knew anything about the film until the peeing off into the world's deepest pit came up. But I enjoyed myself more than I typically do with this kind of film. And a lot of that I attribute to the dialogue and just the overall good acting. And I think there's a lot of quality to the elements outside of just the writing that I think really helped to elevate this into it being a good movie. I am willing to rewatch it. I don't know if I'd voluntarily rewatch it on my own. I'm at solid 7. I really really enjoyed myself. I'm probably, like I said, I wouldn't be fighting to against watching it again. Pretty much. Objectively, I don't think my objectives changed since we've started, but stuff that's gotten praised, and I found other things that are worse off, I suppose. So plot pretty simple. I'm excluding a lot of the complexities that go into that, and like Paul Rudd's character and stuff like that. It's simple in the sense of there's a disabled kid who is going out to see more of the world. Pretty much, that's their goal. They want to live life a little bit more, and their caretaker plays a heavy role in that, being Paul Rudd, and that serves as the crux to the start of the story, is living it up a little bit more. The plot issues are conveniences. And like I said, all the goodwill I had with plot convenience was kind of used up for Dot. But it's still a convenience nonetheless. There are. I think that would be. I think it's the outlying major one for me. I know I had a few other plot issues, but that's the main one that's coming to my head right now. Then going into what's it called? Fuck me, I'm losing my train of thought. World building. World building. It's pretty much our world. So it's very easy to kind of staple things over. Uh, I do wish the world was a little more interactive with our group. And I mean that in the sense of like at the third act, whereas it felt like the world was on pause for Ben to just get to the bottom, and the characters teleported to the bottom. There's stuff like that like those nuances that are kind of repeated a couple times throughout the course of the film. Not exactly, but there's little nicks like that are spread across the film. Um, Again, nothing to horribly demean the film. Uh, for characters, I, funnily enough, I don't have any notes for Peaches because she's so simplified as a character. So I'll start with Peaches. Uh, Peaches is a good tool as a character. I like a lot of the scenes she's in. I think she's fairly consistent with what we get of her. Um, she comes across as a little bit eccentric, but I think that's the actor playing the role more so than the character itself. Um, but serviceable as a tool. I don't really have any issues with her beyond that. Um, Going from Peaches to uh, Elsa, I think Elsa is extremely well characterized at the start of the film. Having thought about it, my potential issue with either her or Trevor being at fault, I don't think it's an issue. I just was bringing it up as a question because I could see it as one. I think I found with them both having a rigid schedule and slowly having to come out of it together. Like the one that sticks out to me for Elsa is when they're looking for excuses not to go on the trip, and Ben has to kind of calm them both down. Uh, but Elsa takes Trevor's humor in stride. She has a lot of work obligations. She does good research, evidently, into Ben. So she just balances being a good mom, but also a busy one, hence why she's hiring a caregiver. Um, I don't really have much for Ben's wife, other than that I think it makes sense that she wants to divorce Ben for him being at fault one way or another for the death of their son. Um, Dot is pretty uncouth, and I mean that she's very much a straight shooter, so she's able to fit right in with our group. Um, she's in. There's a lot of little quick-witted dialogue exchanges that kind of clue you into the building relationship between her and Trevor throughout the film. Um, which again, quality of dialogue in this film is just excellent, and that's across all. That's pretty much across on. That's pretty much a general writing thing that it's across all three of the phases of character and uh, plot and world building, and I think Dot helps to exemplify that because she comes into the film, into the trio, into our group is very, very fairly late. Hence why I was off-putting for Crimson at first. But Dot definitely earns her place, and I think a lot of that is the quick-witted dialogue about how she admits to liking assholes, and uh, you can definitely get a sense of character relationship building from a lot of the dialogue that she spouts, while also being a straight shooter. Um, she's also smart enough to see right through, you know, Ben and Trevor's ploy to get her to go on a date with him. So you can tell she's been around the block pretty much, at least in a while. That she's not really sheltered. She's got good head on her shoulders. Um, and I guess I'll lead me to Trevor. Trevor's got a good sense of humor. Wants to be treated normally or as normally as possible given his condition. Um, he's on tons of meds. He has a very pervasive personality. He likes to poke fun. He clearly has some daddy issues, and he can come across as arrogant at times. That being said, there's a lot of good qualities to him. not to say that those weren't good qualities. There's a lot of good qualities to him too. He's ultimately kind-hearted. He's ultimately uh, good-natured. So he's not there. There's a limit to how much he's willing to push things, and I think a lot of that makes him a very, very well-rounded human character, in very much the same way that Ben is. Ben is a very, very flawed person. Um, Obviously, I think that he joined he wanted to become a caregiver in order to prove to himself that he can care about somebody after the death of his son. That's one of the, I think, leading reasons he wanted to do that, is he wants to prove to himself that he is capable of doing this, because when you lose your son in such a way, you would definitely question why, if you are even capable of looking after and caring about someone. So I think this lends to a lot of the reason why he became a caregiver in the first place. Which is, goes to say, I really, really like Ben as a character. I do have a few nicks for him, which I brought up earlier. Um, I think he's very patient with Trevor. I wish we saw more of it, but he obviously gets to know Trevor well enough that he's not afraid to banter back. He used to write. He's still running away from the divorce, at least over the course of the film. That obviously, those are things that get fixed by the end. He definitely could come across as a bit greedy for the choice of career that he's going to, for wanting to prove to himself or something. That there's definitely an element of greed that goes into that. Um, he's arrogant in his own way. Uh, he has, like I said, he's a very, again, comes across as a very human character, very, very flawed, but overall pretty well done. There's a lot of things that happen in the third act that I think overall kind of start to hamper the story at least a little bit. Um, but they're more like objective nicks. I don't think I have a lot of big issues, so I'm at an 8 objectively.
All right. Crimson, why don't you go next?
Sweet. I'll start with a question first, because writers sparked a thought. Should we have had some sort of reaction from um, Trevor to his mom about the letters? We get no conclusion to that. She's happy to see him after the trip, and
yeah, there would
that's
be
it.
some reaction to that for sure. I imagine they have a good enough relationship that they'd be able to work past it. So I can infer that they worked past it, but the fact that we're missing it, I do think is a kind of a letdown in terms of payoff.
That's for you as well, Spence.
Kind of thinking about it. Yeah. I think it's fine without it, because I'm sure they'd get to a point about it, but that would be without Ben's perspective on the matter.
Well, that's
Well, he
true.
was
That would be a
his
conversation
caregiver
that they would have.
for what, 3 weeks? I don't remember. There was a period of time before he quit,
It could
which
occur
would
with
have
him,
been time.
but
Yeah.
I think it's fine without, because I think it would just, on a more uplifting kind of end of sorts of all these finishings of characters, I think it would kind of a slight sourness to Trevor and Elsa.
Well, it'd be sourness that they work through, which would be fine. You know, it's just
Yeah, because this leaves it like, oh, it's a whole happy ending, but there was this whole big revelation with the dad that we don't actually get a full conclusion on. So that was pretty big that the mom wrote those. Right. Figured I'd throw that out before my ratings. So I will start with my subjective. Spike brought up in the beginning here that the fact that the Netflix logo popped up, whether or not that affected me going into it, and did. I always see the Netflix logo and I kind of dread it. I tend to see Netflix projects as lower than par. But I will say kudos to Sprinks, because this one was a good one. I actually thoroughly enjoyed this. The humor hit me. The interactions between all the characters except Peaches was well done. The whole cash tailing thing didn't really do much for me, but overall, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I liked the subversions; they were solid ones, uh, ones that I will probably stick with me. I'm giving it a 7. Uh, Much like Writer, I probably won't watch it on my own, but I wouldn't be opposed watching it with others. Objectively, I didn't see too many issues in terms of like continuity. We didn't really find any or many continuity errors. I think the characters are pretty consistent throughout, even Peaches. She's consistent to herself of what we get to her, of her. Uh, the cash following them too early to make sense, because we tried to work around why it makes sense early, and I don't think we actually gave it a good enough answer to it. So I do think that is an objective flaw. Dot's convenience, also a flaw, because they left her and then she just happens to be at the same place, same time. In front of their window, she could have been down the street. Who knows? Lots of convenience revolving around Dot's appearance. Ben and Trevor's dynamics were really well written. The fact that they can say the most vile stuff to each other and then just laugh right after. Ben joked to Trevor that he was basically going to die with the medication, because it would have been like a whole day's trip to go back and to retrieve it, and by that point he probably would have died from it. So it's a great dynamic. They did a good job establishing it, because that can be difficult. Elsa, I think, was also well realized. The short amount of time we get with her, I wish, other than what I just brought up of her talking about the letters, we would have seen a little bit more of her conclusion, other than just, I'm glad you made it back alive. So, a little bit, something there. But what is there does suffice. It's adequate. I don't know if we needed more of the attraction journeys, because we just had Rufus. Yeah, Rufus and the pit, and his map was full of destinations, and we had Ben talking about how they can visit all these on the way to the pit, but we only get to see these two. I don't think it's objectively bad, but it is missing out personally. Like a third one, the rule of thirds, right? Frank's talking about how threes everywhere. A third destination would have been nice. I think Trevor's relationship with Dot was well established. I think the shoes thing was a little It's obviously, so they have a tie-in for the second interaction, but it's fine. It's okay. They bounce off each other very well, both the actors and just the characters. For those two, all around, very good acting from everyone. Thumbs up, rambly talk. I think the CGI for the ending is not great. I think it's a little below par, so I'll count it as a negative. Ending it at, funny enough, an objective 8, matching Writer's everything.
Interesting. One point about Elsa that I don't know if it was overlooked, but when she agreed to the road trip, she said, "Contact me every 3 hours." And we see one instance when they're at the diner before picking up Dot that Ben sends her like a photo that they're in Idaho. Do you think Ben still kept to that? Is that something you would have wished, Crimson, if like one of those instances, like
That's true.
something back from Elsa?
Maybe
That's
it would have been nice. It's not necessarily needed, but I would have liked
It's not required, but a welcome addition if they spread that out throughout the movie. Yeah.
Just curious, because there was a lineup where that could have happened. So
yeah, that would have been a good addition.
Okay, I'll go last here. Let's start with my subjective. I quite enjoy this movie a lot. I think it's really well done, for the time of it, like how long it is. To me, it really connects on the difference of a relationship between a father and son, and how different examples of that can go which is why I'm on the side of keeping Peaches, because that just gives another example as to a situation, but not just to the audience of a perspective, but the in characters of how that would affect them, which doesn't seem like it affects them very much at all. Um, but just all of that, I don't know. This would be a movie that's appropriate for Father's Day to watch with your dad, um, but I think it really gives like a feeling of gratefulness for the positives you do have, or situations of like that. I don't know, that's what really resonated with me of this film, is a father and son connection. That's nothing in the film is about two characters of a father and son, like an actual father. Like there's examples of Ben and his kid, but the movie's not about that, and it's not about Trevor finding his dad and then their relationship going forward. That's like one scene. So all of that, like I just really like that of the film. Um, and to me, this might be weird, um, but I find this movie funnier than Kung Fu Panda 2. Um, there were actually things I laughed at in this more so than Kung Fu Panda 2, where I laughed once. But that, then again, that's subjective humor. Yeah, it's an 8 subjectively for me. I really enjoy it. Objectively, I almost moved my objective score with some negatives you two were talking about, but I think it overbalances a lot, and I'm keeping it where it is. So the acting I think is phenomenal, pretty much about everyone. It's another example of Paul Rudd being a great actor to me. I think he pretty much nails a lot of things I see him in. Um, Craig, I forget his last name now, but the guy who plays Trevor, I think he does great. It would have been interesting to see Timothy Chalamet in that part. I don't know if the humor would hit as much. I'm really unsure. It just seems like it was made for Craig. Um, Selena Gomez, I think, was a good role for Dot. Everyone else, I guess Elsa and Janet and Peaches and I guess even Bob, if you throw him in there, I think everyone just did real well with what they had, even Cash. Um, well, no, I already said Cash seemed more bare bones. I don't know. It seemed like Bob had more emotion into his character to Trevor than Cash did to Dot. That could just be me. The camera work is interesting because the shot lineups to me are very, like, pretty much on par. Some good tracking shots for humor that I really like that happened twice, but the emotional connections to Ben, of the perspective of him through the use of the camera, of the shakiness or the fade ins, fade outs in editing use, is very cool, and a technique to use that I don't see a lot in other things, or a lot of movies that pertainly focus through the perspective of one character to equate to all other other devices of the film in a connection to it, and that to me was really cool. Um, but even though that's a really cool thing of like the whole film, it's not to praise or to demerit the usage of still the shots being used as cinematography of, one thing. There's not like big panning sweeps or uh, like crazy Dutch angles or anything like that. It's like it's not needed, but for what it had and equates to is really well done. I really like, and that goes for editing as well. Lighting, I think lighting is just fine. Natural lighting, some artificial lighting of like the hotel room of Ben watching them, with the lights inside and the diner to only kind of like highlight those two things and keep the parking lot dull, so it looks like the diner really stands out. I did like that in the use of lighting, and also the shot lined up for that. Um, let's see, the writing is tightly done. I think it's really good. It has the humor parts on par. Actually, a little better than on par. I think the humor of just not even lineup of jokes, but just like witty banter kind of talk stuff. And to build on the relationship of Ben, Trevor, and Dot, and Peaches, and even Elsa in there, and all the other supporting roles. Um, I just think it's really well done. Um, I, funny enough, also have this as an objective 8.
Going
Oh,
around the
man,
block today
well.
on 8s, huh?
Yeah, I almost
Are you
moved
sure
it.
you don't want to lower to a 7 subjective?
No, no. I have it as an 8 subjective. I really enjoy this movie. There are nitpicks we've touched on. Don't make it a perfect film.
Yeah.
And there's things that definitely, I really wish Peaches was more strengthened with her usage of the film, because I think she could really punch like a real emotional thing, especially with the talk with Ben about like feeling the baby kick. Like I wish there was more to that, to like Ben or something.
Mhm.
But yeah, I still really liked it, and I'm real curious with the number 3 usage somewhere. It's got to be a thing, I'm sure. Um, but I'm not fully pinpointed on the reasoning of it. But yeah,
The only comment I got on your stuff, Sprinks, is no, I don't find it all that weird that you find this funnier than Kung Fu Panda 2. I find it funnier than Kung Fu Panda 2, and I quite like Kung Fu Panda 2 a lot. I just this kind of humor is more my style.
okay.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
there wasn't a lot of nonsense humor in this though,
yeah. Like I said, there's a
which
lot.
seems to be my most targeted. But
Yeah, like I said, I think I brought it up. It's worth bearing and reiterating. The quality of dialogue in this is very, very good. Um, I think that in of itself can hold this a little bit above average as far as I'm concerned on a scale of as I think eights are above average. We're edging towards good to great here. So,
okay.
um, and I do
I'm
think
also just happy that I've chosen something where Crimson hasn't given it between a 4 and 6.
Yeah, I'll have to check my numbers if I've given anything else for just a 7.
yeah. Uh, well, gentlemen, shall I read us out?
I think so.
Yeah.
Well then, audience, thank you for listening, whether it be Spotify, Amazon, Castbox, Google Podcasts, Overcasts, and Podcasts, and you know the drill. And Samsung and iHeartRadio. And if you happen to be on our visual side of things, be it YouTube or Rumble, watching our PNG tubers and our slideshow, feel free to like, comment, subscribe everywhere. Tell us how much you hate our opinions or how much you love them. As always, I have been a geeky writer.
I'm Crimson Maroon.
And I'm Springs.
And we will catch you next time. Later, everybody.
Bye.
Toodaloo.